Before the meeting gets underway, I wish to advise the council and the public in attendance that motion 8 in relation to Time Out Palestinian mural has been withdrawn and will not be considered or debated or discussed at this evening's meeting. Apologies. I've got apologies from Gary Bell, Linda Bell, and Sarah Buttonshaw. Are there any other?
Councillor Jim Montague, if he's not in, he will be running late.
Councillor Kerwin.
Apologies from Councillor Holdsworth.
Councillor Davis.
Councillor Madden, Gary Madden.
Councillor Wallace.
Councillor McIntyre's on her way from her job at the NHS. Thank you.
I have a change in the order of business tonight. We're moving item 5 to item 4 and item 4 to item 5. And before we move on, I'm going to give each councillor that is standing down in May the opportunity to make a speech. So if you wish to make a speech, please raise your hand. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make this as short because I think we're going to have quite a long meeting. I would like to put on record my thanks and best wishes to my friends and colleagues in the Labour Party, the officers for their unwavering professional support and dedication, and the residents of my ward, Collinwood Ward. As my friends know, family is very important to me, as I know it is to others, and I am standing down to spend more time with mine. Sometimes in life, you have to step back and enjoy the moments with loved ones, rather than rushing around and missing everything. But don't fret, you're still going to see me about. And half-truths and misinformation. See you around. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to make a speech? Councillor Hall.
Right. Thank you, Madam Mayor, Chairman and elected members. It has been a privilege to be an elected member of North Tyneside Council. I have worked with committed, splendid elected members and have been supported by professional and dedicated officers over the years. You cannot fulfil the role without them. I must thank them all for their help and support over the many years. I have served as a representative of the council on many outside bodies, especially the NHS, numerous charities, and in the past, many school governors. I have seen the work done on behalf of the residents in these organisations. I thank the staff of all the outside bodies for their work and support. I have enjoyed my role as an elected member of North Tyneside Council, and I shall miss it. It has been good. It just leaves me to give the thousands of residents who have supported me over many years my most sincere thanks for honouring me with their precious votes. Thank you so much for having me as part of this. I think I love you, but not the Tories.
Have anyone else? Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank those who've supported me in my role. I'm very privileged to have been a councillor. I'm very privileged to have brought numerous motions to council. I know I've got one tonight, so that'll be the last one. And thank you for the support with all my motions going forward. I'd also like to just acknowledge that women who are mums or parents of young children can be in politics, and I'm really privileged to have shown that. And I do hope we'll get more parents of young children in politics moving forward, and I hope I've been able to be an example of how that can happen. And I've been really privileged to serve my ward in Kilmath, which I do love dearly, and really privileged to have brought forward changes to youth services in not just Killamut but in Northwest as well. And so I'm really, really pleased that the work that I've done in the Northwest has paved a way for the UKSPF fund that we've had and the youth groups that we've been able to put on there, that there's already been a network there available. And so we've been able to hit the ground running. And so I just hope that, you know, that continues, and thank you again to everyone who supported me along that journey.
Councillor Wilson, you indicated.
Yeah, thanks very much. Again, yeah, thanks from me to all those that I've had the privilege of serving with, especially to colleagues who I've sat with on many subcommittees, and all those who played a big part in the thriving subcommittee that I've had the privilege of chairing over the last few years. I'm going to say au revoir. I leave the door open, hopefully perhaps for returning, but I feel like I need to take a little bit of a break for a while just to focus on some of the priorities. I do intend to remain fully involved in community life in North Shields, and particularly focusing on the North Shields 800 anniversary celebrations, which I've been very involved in and hope to remain so right through to the whole of 2025. So yes, for those of you who are in other parts of the borough, you're very welcome to come and spend some time with us in North Shields during our anniversary year of 2025. There'll be lots of things to come and see and do. So we'll see you there, and au revoir for now.
Is there anyone else? Councillor.
Thank you. Just very quickly, I think just to say thank you, particularly to my fellow councillors, Councillor Parkland and Councillor Bell, who showed me great support and help throughout, and some members of the Labour group who did show me a lot of support and kindness in the time that I've been here. And a quick thank you as well to the officers, because there is some great officers in this council who are very knowledgeable, and it has been a real privilege to represent the residents of my ward. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, Councillor Harrison. On. Okay, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I was holding back because I thought my colleague John Hunter would have came here tonight. I thought he was coming along, but I think the ill health has obviously caught up with him. So thanks for giving us this opportunity, and to thank the council on behalf of John Hunter for the service he has given to the people of Howden and North Tyneside. As many of you know, John Hunter's ill health is standing down in the coming election. Can I also say thank you to all the other councillors, irrespective of their political colour, who are also not seeking re-election in Peer. John Hunter was elected to serve as a Howden Ward councillor on North Tyneside in 2004, and has been a councillor in that ward for 20 years, where he has doggedly fought for the residents of Howden Ward. And during his time, he's dealt with numerous, and I would probably say thousands of ward issues. Whether it was a faulty repair or a planning issue, John would obstinately follow it through, and many of us understand John's obstinacy, often questioning the response he received. John is one of those stalwarts who has not sought the lure of being a chair of a committee. John just wants to do the best he can for the residents, and is happiest doing his ward work. John was regularly seen walking around Howden, talking to the residents whilst carrying out a street inspection or visiting the sheltered accommodations. And for 20 years, he's attended his weekly advice surgeries religiously. But to do any job, well, we all know you need the support, and John has that support in the abundance from his wife, Joan, the unpaid secretary who takes his phone calls and generally keeps John in check before he comes to meetings or goes out visiting the residents. I want to wish them both well for the future on behalf of the council. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Fox, you indicated.
Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to the residents in Wheatslade for working with me, electing me, and just being generally absolutely fab throughout the last couple of years that I've been a councillor. I'd also like to thank my colleagues in Wheatslade, Councillor McMullen, Councillor Burtonshaw, and the previous Councillor Muriel Green, who all of whom have been a pleasure to work with in their time. So obviously officers at the council for all the work that they've done to support me and to respond to residents' inquiries. Thank you to them. And also colleagues and friends that I've made within the council, within the Labour group and the Labour Party, the independent group, passing colleagues in the Tory Party, but generally I'd just like to say it's been a real privilege and I'm glad that I've had this experience. So thank you.
I think we can move on to item 2 now. Declarations of interest. Can I remind members, if they have any registrable or non-registrable interests in matters appearing on the agenda and the nature of interests, they must verbally declare in respect of any items of business to be discussed at this meeting and the nature of such interests. You're also invited to disclose any dispensation from the requirement to declare any registrable and non-registrable interest, and that have been granted to you in respect of any matters appearing on the agenda. Those members should also complete the card which has been circulated and return it to the receptacle located on the desk of the Democratic Services Officer before they leave. Do we have any registered interest? Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. On the item 5, my father works for North Tyneside Council, and on item 4, motion 6, I work for Parkside Care, which provides adult social care to the council, and my brother-in-law is also a director of Parkside Care. So for that motion, I'll be waiting outside the meeting.
Okay. Councillor, I think it's Councillor Murphy.
Item 5, Chair. A member of my family works for North Tyneside Council.
Councillor O'Keefe.
Hi, Chair. I've got a family member. Sorry, item 5. I have a family member that works for the local authority. So I've got non-registrable personal interest.
Councillor Mulvena.
Numerous members of my family work for the authority. It's the easiest way to put it.
Councillor Wendy Lott.
Item 5, non-personal registrable interest. My daughter works for the authority.
Councillor Frank Lott.
Thank you, Chair. Likewise, item 5, the council pay policy. Member of my family works for the authority.
Item 6, a family member receives adult social care. I beg your pardon. Motion 6. I knew there was a 6 in it somewhere.
Councillor Clark. No.
Critters.
Councillor Jane Shaw.
Oh, sorry. Regarding motion 6, not motion 6, the pay policy, my husband is employed by the council.
Councillor Julie Critters.
Thank you, Chair. My partner is employed by the council.
Councillor Carl Johnson.
Family member employed by the council. Item 5.
Councillor Davis.
Item 5, my daughter works for the council.
Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. On item number 5, a member of my family works for the authority.
Motion 5, registrable personal interest, and I'll withdraw that motion.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you. Right. Minutes of the previous meeting. The next item is the minutes of the council meeting that was held on the 18th of January 2024 and the 1st of February 2024 and the 15th of February 2024. Can I ask the council to confirm these minutes? Councillor Davis.
Yeah, it's count the minutes from the 18th. Oh, sorry, the 15th of February, motion 5, page 20. The Councillor Carl Johnson requested that the Community Independence Group withdraw the motion and could give it information requested verbally. I actually refused, as the community group refused, and asked the motion to go through the proper channels that were to be voted on.
Right, okay, this is about the accuracy of the minutes. Does the council agree?
Chair, can I propose a motion without notice to amend the minutes to reflect what Councillor Davis just said?
Is that agreed? Is it agreed, everybody? Agreed, right, agreed. Okay, thank you. Item 5, which is the North Tyneside Council pay policy of 2024 to 2025. Can I ask Councillor Carl Johnson to move the report?
Thank you, Chair. Council has asked to consider the pay policy statement of 24-25, which is included to Appendix 1 of the report. Under the Local Housing Act 2011, it is a legal requirement that the authority publish a pay policy statement before the 31st of March each year. The purpose of the statement is to set out the authority's policies and a range of pay matters relating to the workforce. The authority understands the importance of openness, transparency, and setting pay which is fair, consistent, and equitable. Right, sorry. The attached pay policy and the current practice of the authority of pay and grading structures and job evaluation, policies and terms and conditions in relation to the remuneration of payments to chief officers, as stated the authority's constitution as power to determine and conditions of North Tyneside Council, rest of the full council. It is determined the pay and remuneration of all its employees. The authority complies with all relevant legislation. The key areas for the council to note about the pay policy in 2024-25 is that the median average salary is 27,852. The pay multiplier stays the same at 1.1 to 6. Majority of North Tyneside Council employees are part of the Green Book terms and conditions, and the current pay scale is contained in Appendix A of the policy. There will be a new pay scale effective from the 1st of April 2024, but this has not yet been agreed, as negotiations at the national level are continuing. Any increase will of course be backdated to the 1st of April when agreed. I ask Council approved recommendations as set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Chair, I'll second that. Thank you.
No questions? Is the recommendation agreed? Agreed, okay. Thank you. Right, we're moving to item 4. And this is motions are the motions, as I said before, motion 8 has been withdrawn. 8 motions have been received as detailed in the agenda. However, as I stated at the beginning of the meeting, motion 8, the motion on Tynemouth Palestinian mural, has been withdrawn and will now not be discussed or debated at this meeting. Please note, details of the legal and financial implications of each of the motions have been circulated to all members prior to this meeting. Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move a motion without notice to elect a new chair of this meeting, Chair. This Conservative group has no confidence in your ability to chair this meeting. The chair has today set out to stifle debate and suppress motions which are uncomfortable for the Labour Party. As councillors, we have a duty to speak out about the issues facing our residents. Ahead of this evening's meeting, the chair has acted to block members from discussing the introduction of a bus lane on the Coast Road, has acted to block members from scrutinising how the mayor will spend millions of pounds in the Household Support Fund, and most shamefully of all, has blocked discussion about imagery in Tynemouth Station. This chair should be ashamed. He has capitulated to lefty lawyers and the Labour Party opposite, and this group has no confidence in him.
Do you have a seconder?
Second the motion.
Point of order, Chair. In the Constitution, there's no motion without notice that can be used to remove the chair of the council in the meeting. I think if you look at the items there, to appoint a chair at a meeting, which is a motion to appoint a chair. The chair is already here and the chair is present, therefore you can't move a motion without notice to remove the chair from the meeting chair.
Right, so there's nothing in the constitution for this motion to go ahead, so cancelled.
Chair,
I do find
Chair,
it a
with-
disgrace. Can you?
No, sorry,
No,
Chair,
no,
with regards to the,
sit.
with
You have
regard,
to be quiet.
with regard,
Where I'm speaking, so be quiet, turn it off. I find it absolutely disgraceful that a member of the Conservative Party, the leader of the Conservative Party, has said that I have not been fair. I have been fair. When I took this job on, the beginning of the last municipal year, I
Move the motion to elect a different chair.
Gargill.
Thank you. Recent plans to redevelop the vacant Redburn pub in Churton angered local residents, and a petition of over 200 people was sent to council. The residents cited problems such as congestion and social disturbance. The police recommended that uniformed guards and CCTV are installed to deter incidents of antisocial behaviour. However, what wasn't considered was the effects of air pollution on the neighbourhood, a neighbourhood that has the worst health outcomes in the borough. In some areas of Churton Ward, a resident can live 12 years less than a resident a few miles down the road in Tynemouth. The position of a new petrol station is within a few hundred yards of the existing petrol station at Front Street, Churton, near a residential area and just off a busy road that leads to the Tyne Tunnel, which has really heavy traffic flow, and where cars are often stationary with their engines running at rush hour. Friends of the Earth have analysis shows that air pollution disproportionately impacts lower income and more deprived areas, and particularly affects neighbourhoods with higher ethnic minority populations. Half of the neighbourhoods that have very high air pollution are in the bottom 30% of the most deprived neighbourhoods. Air pollution has wide-ranging and profound impacts on human health and well-being. Poor air quality has been shown to be responsible for over 4 million deaths each year from outdoor pollutants, 2.3 million of indoor air pollution, and a wide range of cardiovascular, respiratory and neurological diseases. It is important that these considerations are taken into account. The health impacts of air pollution, especially in areas where higher prevalence of poorer health outcomes when evaluating planning applications for petrol stations. We need to prioritise public health, cleaner air and well-being in urban development decisions. We need environments that support and encourage healthy lifestyles with clean environments. Therefore, we request that the authority undertakes an evaluation of how the authority planning process could be adapted to take into account the health impacts of air pollution, particularly in areas of higher prevalence of poorer health outcomes.
Second this motion and reserve the right to speak.
I'll now invite members to speak to the motion. Councillor Willie Salmon.
Thank you very much. At full council, they are discussed and their own individual merits at the planning committee. But we already have what I consider a robust existing policy. Planning applications are already assessed in terms of their impact on air pollution in compliance with a range of local and national planning policies intended to secure the high standard of amenity, specifically the National Planning Framework, paras 1922, which state that planning decisions should ensure new development is appropriate for its location, taking into account the likely effects, including cumulative effects of pollution on health, living conditions and the natural environment, as well as the potential sensitivity of the site or the wider area to impacts that could arise from the development. Planning decisions should sustain and contribute towards compliance with relevant limit values and national objectives for pollutants, and opportunities for improved air quality and mitigate impact should be identified. Local plan policy DM519 states that development proposals that may cause pollution either individually or cumulatively of water, air or soil through noise, smell, smoke, steam, dust, vibration, light and other pollutants will be required to incorporate measures to prevent or reduce their pollution so as not to cause nuisance or unacceptable impacts on the environment, to people and to biodiversity. Development that may be sensitive, such as housing, schools and hospitals, to existing or potentially polluting sources will not be sited in proximity to such sources. Potentially polluting development will not be sited near to sensitive areas unless satisfactory air migration measures can be demonstrated. North Tyneside Air Quality Strategy 2023 to 28 notes that air quality in North Tyneside already meets UK objectives, but nevertheless sets out aims and actions to further improve air quality, public health and the environment to meet the council plan theme, A Green North Tyneside. It promotes reductions in particulates and identifies actions to improve public health and pollution. The local plan recognises that pollution can affect health, undermine quality of life, and affect natural habitats. Policy aims to protect new and existing developments contributing to or being put at unacceptable risk from or being adversely affected by unacceptable levels of pollution. All new developments should comply with national standards. The World Health Organization's standard for good quality air forms the basis of current UK air quality standards. To assist in assessing impact, development proposals that may result in a detrimental effect upon air quality in the borough have to provide an air quality assessment and propose mitigation or promote sustainable options such as electric charging points. Environmental health are consulted on planning applications and provide specialist advice in retention to air quality impacts. There are no designated air quality management areas in the borough. So the motion adds nothing to what we do already, but of course we accept the motion because we are always open to new ideas. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Bartoli.
I'd like to move an amendment, please, Chair.
Say the amendment. Just a few minutes while they get some copies for members. Can I ask members if there are any more amendments that need to be photocopied? Can they do it now rather than having to stop every 5 minutes for something to get photocopied? So if they have anything that needs amending, you want amendment? Just for information, we're waiting for the council officer to return. He was busy photocopying. Waiting for the council officer to return. He was busy photocopying. Councillor Bartoli, would you like to introduce your motion? Could you just inform us what's the difference between the original motion and the amendment, please, as well? Helpful.
In Chair, in terms of the difference, I think it's when you're asking me to explain the difference, do you mean which paragraphs are different? Which
as for members?
I'd have to go through each one line by line, I think, Chair, to explain that. I could sit and do that if you like. I'm quite happy to, if you can give me some time.
Just give her the.
I can get a highlighter.
Paragraph will do.
I think what I'm going to say, I think, explains the reasoning behind the changes. They're not. They're more adding something in than I think changing the substantive.
Okay, then.
So I think if I'd explain the principle. So the original motion moved by Councillor Davis focused solely on the health implications of air pollution, particularly in areas with higher rates of poor health outcomes when evaluating planning applications for petrol stations. And while this remains a critical aspect of our considerations, we also recognise the necessity to acknowledge the advantages that petrol stations can also bring to some of our communities. Petrol stations play an essential role in providing vital services to our neighbourhoods, particularly in areas where access to electric cars might be limited due to financial constraints. These stations not only ensure mobility, but also contribute significantly to the economic and social fabric of our communities. Therefore, it's imperative that we strike a delicate balance between addressing public health concerns rightly raised by Councillor Davis and recognising the benefits that petrol stations bring to these areas. So with this in mind, the amended motion seeks to broaden our perspective. It acknowledges the vital role of petrol stations while also emphasising our commitment to prioritising public health, cleaner air and overall well-being in urban development decisions. By taking into account both the potential health impacts of air pollution and the benefits that petrol stations provide to our communities, we aim to ensure a comprehensive evaluation process that considers all the relevant factors. Furthermore, the motion proposes that developers be asked to produce a health impact assessment in certain cases, and that, Chair, I think leads on from the legal implications that were handed out, especially where there is a significant potential for adverse health effects due to air pollution from petrol stations. So this assessment will enable us to make informed decisions that safeguard the health and well-being of our residents, while also recognising and mitigating any potential risks associated with petrol station developments. I think Councillor Samuel rightly said that we don't talk about individual cases, but with reference to Councillor Davis's comments, I know that it is a contentious issue and there are many detractors, but there are also many in favour as well. So, in conclusion, the amended motion reflects our commitment to making balanced and evidence-based decisions that prioritise both the public health and community welfare. By acknowledging the advantages that petrol stations can bring to our communities, we demonstrate that our dedication to fostering sustainable development while ensuring the health and prosperity of all of our residents in North Tyneside.
Does anybody wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Carl Johnson.
Thanks, Chair. You know, it's a bit rich that the Conservative group have removed the community independents getting credit from the motion at the start, but while it's just about verging on the Tories' war on woke, I'm happy to have a look at what we're happy to have a look at what the things they're suggesting are. Not saying we agree with them, but we'll take a look when it's reported to the planning committee that stage that's when we'll decide. So we're happy to support the amendment, Chair.
Councillor Fox.
I'd like to just point out that the first paragraph of the motion doesn't undermine the provision of petrol stations. So in terms of this motion as it stands, there isn't any undermining of the provision of petrol stations. It states quite clearly when evaluating planning applications for petrol stations. That doesn't mean there's any, it doesn't mean that that's going to be undermined in any way. It just means that health benefits are going to be taken into consideration. So from that point of view, I think that should stay as it is. I'd also like to say that the item 1 of the amendment to undertake an evaluation of how the authority's planning process could be adapted to take into account both the health impacts of air pollution and the benefits of petrol stations. It presupposes the outcome of that evaluation will illustrate or demonstrate the benefits of petrol stations without providing any information about what the scope of that evaluation is. So I just find that very conflicting, a bit contradictory. So those are just my feedbacks. I think the third paragraph about in addition to the above, that seems good to me. Don't see any issue with that. But I'd suggest that the evaluation of the impact of air pollution and the benefits of petrol stations is just confusing, contradictory, and what you know, like I honestly don't know what you're talking about in terms, you know, it needs to be much clearer in terms of the scope of that evaluation to really understand what that means.
Samuel.
Just briefly to say that I'm quite happy to accept the amendment as well, for the simple reason that both the amendment and the original motion cover things that are already adequately covered by existing planning regulations and decisions and policies that are there already. So I'm not sure what the point of this debate is already, because there are already adequate things in place to discuss all these things.
Chair, I think we all broadly agree. Can I just remove to the vote, Chair?
The Councillor Davis has a right to reply on the points.
Sorry, I just wanted to further to Councillor Bartoli's point, just try and pick up a couple of the points that were just made. I think Councillor Samuels is right, we do broadly agree. I think the issue was with the tone of the original motion, which seemed to us to heavily imply that planning should disproportionately scrutinise petrol stations in areas with poorer health outcomes and therefore poorer areas. And that's how we took the reading of the initial motion, which is what Councillor Bartoli's amendment tries to address. I appreciate what Councillor Samuel's saying, and from the legal guidance, that was really clear that lots of this already happens. So we agree entirely in terms of this already being a thing. I think the point of Councillor Bartoli's amendment is to try and take out this disproportionate impact on poorer communities across the borough.
Councillor Davis, you have the right.
Yeah, yeah, I'd like to. The motion just asks for an evaluation of the air pollution. It doesn't agree the requirement within the planning to access the needs of the community and residents. What I was really asking, what we're really asking for is that in this case, there is petrol. It's to assess the petrol stations and where they're actually placed, and that was the whole point of the motion. Is that because it's in areas where there's already there is a provision of a petrol station and it's near a residential area, and it's near the air quality could be compromise because of the busy roads nearby and the Tyne Tunnel, and also the fact that there's already a petrol station further up. And I know that I'm quite happy with the bit in addition, the asking developers to produce a health impact assessment. But, to say that, we're supposed to be going towards like a cleaner environment and and this is the whole point of the motion, was to look at like really, like where the petrol stations are placed. And in this particular incidence, I think we just need to have a better way of evaluating where, that particular place, and it's not being disproportionate to poorer areas. What it's being is like taking into more consideration those areas, because they do have poorer health outcomes, and that was the whole point of the motion. Anyway, we're happy with the only bit I'm not happy, it's to say the benefits of petrol stations when we should be moving towards a cleaner environment. And I do see, the benefits of petrol stations on like busy roadways next to residential areas where there's already a petrol station. I can't really see a benefit, but the rest of the amendment, asking the developers to produce a health impact assessment, I'm perfectly okay with that.
Okay, we'll go to the vote now.
Have a name vote, please, Chair.
We need a seconder for the name vote.
So not the amendment first.
Voting systems now. All members can please vote. So you're voting on the amendment proposed by the Conservative group. Bring the vote to an end if all members have voted. Please close the vote.
The amendment is carried. 52 for, none abstained, total 52 carried. So we go to debate on the substantive motion. Should we go straight to the vote?
Please, Chair, can we name
Can we
vote
just
as well?
all
Chair,
vote on this?
Councillor Bartoli got the right to reply.
Well, all right.
Councillors indicate to me there are machines not working. Is your machine not working?
Because the vote's finished, I think.
We could rerun the votes, Chair.
Yes, it's not on. She's not done. We'll go back and do the vote again because she clearly isn't.
Open the vote again. So we'll start a new vote on the amendment, councillors. So please, can you vote now? Does that work, councillor? Have all members voted? Please close the vote.
It's 53 for, no abstentions, none against. Motions, the amendment's carried. Now we go on to the debate on the substantive motion as amended. So anyone wish to speak on this? Councillor Bartoli.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank the party opposite and also the community independents for their support on this motion. It wasn't in any way meant to water down the original motion, which I think we all agree was an important one. It was meant perhaps to broaden the scope and also to bring it into line with the legal requirements which were posted later in the day. So obviously that the community independents didn't have the opportunity of being aware of. And I think also just perhaps underline that as well as the negative impacts of petrol stations in poorer areas, there can be disproportionately positive impacts as well. So it's just to try and weigh up that balance. Thank you, Chair.
And we'll
name
go
vote,
to the
please,
vote on
Chair.
the substantive motion now.
Name vote, please, Chair.
Is there a second for that? Thank you. Can members vote now, please? I'll close the vote now. Thank you.
53 for, no abstentions, none against, votes carried. Okay, we're now going on to motion 2, signed by councillors Willie Samuel, Julie
Yeah.
Crudith.
I wonder if I could just move a motion without notice. I may need some legal advice on this, but under 9N of the procedures, we are allowed to suspend a rule, and we would like to suspend Rule 4 on page 118, which would give us the opportunity to vote on electing a new chair. Whilst I understand your personal resistance to this, I appreciate it. I think we on this side of the chamber feel very strongly that our voice has been stifled in the decision taken to ignore our 2 motions, particularly the one about the bus lane on the coast road. And we feel like the mayor or the Labour Party have got something to hide.
Councillor Bartoli, which procedure rule are you suspending by that? What are you proposing? Because you're using an N, which is to suspend a particular council procedure rule. Which council procedure rule? Rule 4. As for the one to suspend, person presiding at the meeting exercise authority of the chair. Yeah. If the chair. So for the suspending, using that provision, so it's a motion without notice, using that provision to suspend a particular council procedure rule. The council procedure rule they're referring to is the chair, person of the meeting, the exercise authority of the chair. What they're trying to do is suspend that. I don't know how that ousted you from the chair. Yeah. Person presiding at the meeting, the exercise any authority of the chair. You are the chair.
Oh, no
I don't understand how that works. Because even suspending that rule doesn't prevent you from being the chair.
Do I have to?
I think we're going to have to give some advice. It's a chair, it's a rule.
Right, I'm going to ask legal to give some ruling on this.
If I understand correctly, what you're trying to propose is a motion without notice to suspend Rule 4, which is about the chair. Well, what is the effect of that if you suspend that rule? Because in my view, it doesn't remove the chair from being in the chair.
the effect would be, in our eyes, that the chair becomes vacant because there is no, so the chair within the rules, the chair presides over the meeting. Now, if that rule is suspended, the chair no longer presides over the meeting, which would then revert to a different motion without notice, which was our original motion without notice, to elect a chair of this meeting. There is precedence for this. In 2004, Councillor McGar moved a motion of no confidence in Chair Govius within this council because the Labour group had no confidence in the chair. And that is the position we find ourselves in this evening, with the Conservative group having no confidence in the ability of this chair.
Do you have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, we'll go to the vote on this.
Chair, Councillor Bartoli would like to speak.
You don't, no, you don't have no, you do it,
Not
you
a
can't,
motion,
you can't,
fine.
no motion. Go to the vote. Name vote. Okay. Got second, right? So,
To be clear on what we're voting against, we're voting for the motion is that they have no confidence in you. So if if we have confidence in you, we will vote against the motion.
I don't think that's the motion, to be fair. If you don't mind me interrupting, I think the motion is to suspend the rule. It's not about a question
Right,
at
but
this
still-
point about confidence in the chair.
okay, let's go to the vote.
You're voting on suspending the rules.
Please, can I request a bit of clarity on what we're voting on?
Who's asking the question? I can't see. Sorry.
I'm just a bit unclear on what we're voting on.
There's been a motion moved without notice to suspend a particular procedural rule of the authority, which is Rule 4 in the Council's Constitution and the Rules of Procedure, which relates to the chair and the person presiding in a meeting may exercise the power and duty of the chair. So the motion that's been put forward is one which would ask Council to suspend that particular procedural rule. And that's the motion before. That's been being put forward.
Would you like some information as to why we've proposed the?
Heard that. I just wasn't clear on what we were voting on now, whether it was this motion for or suspension or the other.
Can I get some advice from legal as well, please? Could you please point me to where it says that you can't speak on a motion without notice?
Sure. I apologise, Councillor. I can't see that. I thought that was my assumption. I apologise.
So can
Do you want to speak on that?
Councillor Bartoli please pose his motion and I'll speak the second.
Point of order, Chair. Councillor Bones continues to talk about the standing orders, but the Chair moved a motion before to not further hear from Councillor Bones. Councillor Bones has further been heard from many times since that time to add to his political fear that he's trying to draw this council meeting to tonight, Chair. I suggest we move straight to the vote because this Labour group has full confidence in Councillor Brian Billis, the Chair, and we'll be voting as such.
Okay, Chair, sorry, just further to that. The motion not to be heard regards to the specific point. This is a separate motion. And within the rules, the motion to be not heard was regarding that specific point. I'm entitled to take part in business going forward, and I'm therefore entitled to not only second, but also speak to this motion.
I'm sorry, I'm going to proceed the vote because it's just taking too long.
Chair, point of order, Chair. I think we have, under what we've just heard from legal, we have the right to speak to this motion.
I was asked a specific question about whether or not on a notice on motion without notice, a motion without notice rather, could I right to speak. I've corrected my advice, but the chair had already moved to the vote on that. That's now a matter for the chair.
But the chair had wrongly moved to the vote.
To the vote, right?
Sorry, the chair had wrongly moved to the vote because members were not allowed to speak. The chair, just because the chair disagrees with members on this side, doesn't mean that we don't have the right to speak.
In this chamber, I decide what's right and wrong.
No, Chair,
So
no,
I'm
Chair,
going
you
to the
don't.
vote.
No, Chair, you
There are
don't.
rules.
There's rules and there's a constitution, Chair.
I'm going to the vote. The vote, can we open the vote?
Shame.
Negative. Against.
If members can vote now, please.
Vote on this. This is an illegal vote.
There was a request.
There wasn't. It wasn't requested or seconded, Chair.
It was seconded.
If members have all voted, we'll close the vote. Thank you.
Seven, total 53, not carried.
I think if there was any doubt about the bias of the chair, I think it's been demonstrated beautifully over the last 10 minutes.
I resent that. I am fair. I think you need to look at yourselves as a group. You need to look at yourselves as a group. Disgrace. You're the disgrace in this group. Absolute disgrace.
You're running this like you're in charge of everything, just running roughshod over the rules.
Councillor Bartoli, we're moving on to the next motion. Thank you. Motion 2 by Motion 2. Councillor William Samuel, would you like to speak on this?
Chair, I would like to, before we proceed in debate, to move a brief amendment to this motion, which hopefully does not require to be printed and circulated around because I don't think it's necessary. Can we, at the last paragraph, remove the part that says Northumbria Health Trust and replace it with North East and North Cumbria Integrated Care Board? Is that agreed?
Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, if I may proceed with the motion. I bring this motion to council not as is normally alleged to be a cut and paste motion from a national level, but as part of my experience as a local member. I get increasing number of inquiries from residents asking for help in getting an NHS dentist. By far the biggest health issue that I get calls about. People who are desperate for help. In one particular instance, a gentleman who had taken to removing his own teeth using pliers. That should really not be happening in North Tyneside in the 21st century. I don't have an answer for these people. There are plenty of dentists about, but in the last 14 years, nearly all dental practices have moved from doing NHS work to doing exclusively private work. Private dental treatment is expensive, as I'm sure everybody here already knows, yet we are told that we have a right to some help from dental treatment by the NHS. There are plenty of our people who don't have the money to pay for private dental treatment, which makes it a big issue. So I decided to do a little bit of research. The NHS website tells me that the NHS will provide any clinically necessary treatment needed to keep your mouth, teeth and gums healthy and free of pain. It then tells me to put in my postcode if I want to search for an NHS dentist. So I did. 15 dental practices were listed in North Tyneside. None were taking new adult NHS patients. 2 said they would take children under 17. So out of interest, I phoned one of them and asked, I will not say which one because I wouldn't be right, but they told me they were not taking any children under 17 right now. I found 2 practices in South Shields when the website said they would take NHS patients, but only those entitled to free dental treatment NHS care. Out of interest, I called both. Neither were actually taking any NHS patients. So I concluded that it is impossible to get an NHS dentist in North Tyneside and that those on low incomes are condemned to poor dental health. This is a scandal. And I'm sure I don't have to tell people this is not a problem confined to North Tyneside. It's a national scandal and one that the current government has done nothing except platitudes to offer. And no, I don't think things were perfect in 2010, but they have got much worse due to a government that has imposed austerity in all walks of our life. We therefore, as the elected representatives of the people in North Tyneside, have a duty to complain to the Integrated Health Board and to the government that we do not have the rights to NHS dental treatment that we are supposed to have under the law, and that is a disgrace. I move.
Chair, I'll second that and to reserve the right to speak.
Do you wish to speak on the motion? Councillor Scargill.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just say quickly that there are people watching this meeting live from home who have messaged me and are disgusted by the actions of the Chair and the fact that on this side we're being completely silenced by...
Councillor Scargill.
I'm just very quickly, it is relevant.
Speaking on the motion.
I will do.
I'll get to it.
It is completely beyond what I thought it would be like being a councillor. And I think that, that going forward, we should consider not stopping this side from putting motions in. But to talk about dentistry, I think everybody would agree that the situation in dentistry isn't great. I've recently also had to change dental practice, and it's incredibly difficult to find one that is taking on patients. But what I didn't hear in Willie Samuel's speech, and I wonder if the other movers of the motion have read up about this, about the NHS long-term workforce plan that was brought in by the government, because just 5 minutes of research and I found that the dentists will be offered a bonus to take on more NHS patients, which will create more than 2.5 million new appointments in the next year. There will be golden hello cash incentives for dentists to come and work in areas that are underserved, with one-off payments of up to £20,000, a new patient payment of between £15 to £50 to treat around 1 million new patients who have not seen an NHS dentist in 2 years or more, a new Smile for Life programme with the aim that by the time children go to school, every child will see teeth brushing as a normal part of their day, increasing dental training places by up to 40%, which I think we'd all say was brilliant, by 2031 to 32, and also new measures to attract dentists from overseas to work in the NHS. So I thought what was lacking from Councillor Samuel's speech was criticism of the urgent plan that is already in place and what he would prefer to see in its place. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak on the motion? Councillor Kerwin.
Thank you. I just wanted to address a point there because Councillor Scargill referenced the NHS long-term workforce plan that was released last year. So that was 13 years of failure on dentistry before they decided to take any action. Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Chair.
Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to move an amendment to this.
A few minutes for people to read the amendment when you get the hand. Have a seconder. Councillor Scargill. We all read the amendment. Councillor Bones, would you like to speak on the amendment?
Thank you, Chair. This amendment acknowledges the problems with dentistry in North Tyneside at present. I think it's something that we can all come together on. So, we've had similar problems to Councillor Samuel. We have had residents get in touch. I know in my own ward, one dental practice has had to close down altogether. It is a real issue. What this amendment seeks to do is not shy away from that problem. It actually seeks to see what the council as an authority can do to support and help it. This amendment seeks to establish a dental task force, which would be chaired by the mayor and would bring together leading dental professionals, dentists already operate in North Tyneside, as well as the trust, councillors, officers, other stakeholders to directly address the issues in the pipeline and why we have such a problem in North Tyneside. The government has gone, has moved on this recently with its dental recovery plan, which aims to make sure that everyone who needs to see a dentist, particularly those who've been unable to access dentistry since the pandemic, will be able to do so. And that includes a whole host of funding for dentists. But actually what this amendment does is make sure that as an authority, we are giving dentists in North Tyneside the support they need to benefit from the dentistry plan and make sure that we can get our dentistry services back on track. I've tried to make it non-political. I've taken out some of the political elements that were in there initially, but I think really keen that once again, rather than writing letters to the CCG or the NHS Trust or to the government, we think about what as an authority we can do to really make a difference on the ground here in North Tyneside. And I think that's exactly what this amendment does. Poor dental health affects everything, and particularly in some of our poorer areas, poor dental care is a real issue. It's something that we are really keen to try and solve, and that's why I hope that we can get cross-party support to have this dental task force set up and really make an impact on the ground. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. If we will ask the Conservative group of this, and if not, we will move our own amendment separately to this, Chair. Take out the backslapping of the Conservative government, because we all know the dental recovery plan is failing. Rishi Sunak's disastrous launch of the dentistry recovery plan in Bristol was a massive sign of this, when he turned up to try and say that there is dentists registering here, and there was queues around the street. We're happy to have a mayoral dental task force, but we think it's ridiculous to take any criticism of the Conservative government out and just add in that the Conservative government has got a dental recovery plan. If the move of the motion will leave that, take that first paragraph that they're amending out, Labour group will be happy to support the motion. If not, we will move our own amendment with the second part of your motion in.
Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. We're happy to support the amendment. This is a really serious issue that needs to be addressed quickly, and I think a task force would be extremely helpful to deal with the problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm delighted actually to set up a dental task force, because I think it's about time we got to the heart of the problem. Dentists should be having their say and they should be heard, to be quite honest. This has been a problem for years and years and years. And I have to say, I have a number of parents writing to me complaining that their child cannot get a dental treatment, complaining that it's a waste of money in the National Health Service when they have to go into hospital for 2 and 3 days to have treatment. So all I'm going to say to, I think it's right and proper that was set up a task force. We'll get to the heart of the matter. We'll find out where the truth is and what has been going on and how we can put it right. Thank you.
Samuel.
To hear if the Conservatives will accept the fact that we reject the first part of their amendment, but the dental task force is acceptable to us.
I'm happy to go with just the second change, just the addition of the task force is our amendment.
Okay.
Sorry, can I also just point out that the last part would also be changed in line?
Yeah, yeah, it's not been changed. I did make the amendment at the start, so it hasn't been changed here, but that's fine. I think that's taken as read.
So yes, the one circulated is obviously not correct.
So are you agreeing to Councillor Samuel's amendment of the amendment?
No, I'm amending my own amendment.
Your amendment, yeah.
Councillor Bones is amending his own amendment to take out the first part in the top paragraph, not the part that's on the screen now. The big chunk in yellow at the top, to take out that part there, and then we leave in the mayoral task force in. Yeah, we're happy with that on the Labour group side.
So are we all happy with that? Do you want to go to the vote on that? Okay, we'll go to the vote.
And we have a name vote, Mr. Chair.
Name vote, okay.
So we're voting against.
Can we open a vote, please? Can members please vote now? All members voted. Close the vote.
Here, that's carried. 53 votes, none against, no abstentions. Do you wish to go? Sorry, go on, Councillor.
Sorry, Jan. I was jumping in for the right to reply, but if other members want to speak.
Do you want the right to reply now? Then you want to go? I don't know if we want to go straight to the substantive motion straight away, and then we'll save a bit of time.
Okay. Just briefly, I think it's really important that we have established that, well, we are about to hopefully establish that dental task force. I'd just like to come back on a point that the Mayor mentioned just there. The Mayor mentioned that she was pleased that the task force would finally get to work. And the only thing I'd say is it really shouldn't take a motion from the Conservative group to get the Mayor to act on issues like dentistry. That's the only thing I would point out. I'm very glad that the Mayor's now going to put this on top of her priority list and establish this task force, but it really shouldn't take an amendment from us. Thank you, Chair.
On to the substantive motion now.
Members please vote now. All members voted. Close the vote now.
The amended motion, substantive motion, I should say, is carried. 53 for, none against, no abstentions. We are now going on to motion 3 by Councillor Erin Parker-Leonard, Hannah Johnson and Councillor Samuel.
Thank you, Chair. Jo Cox was passionate about achieving a 50-50 parliament, and unfortunately women's participation in politics is directly impacted by the issue of abuse and intimidation. Being gay, disabled or from an ethnic minority impacts those women further, and of course it affects all those who choose to stand, not just women. In the last 8 years, 2 MPs, Jo Cox and Sir David Amess, were murdered as they met their constituents. MPs are regularly reporting death threats and threats of serious sexual violence to the police. 88% of local councillors surveyed in 2022 had experienced abuse and intimidation. And this is not acceptable, and action needs to be taken to ensure people who wish to serve feel safe to do so. The Right Honourable Jackie Smith, who is chair of the Jo Cox Foundation, said, "Abuse and intimidation of elected politicians is a genuine threat to democracy in this country, and now is the time to act if we want to prevent elected representatives from stepping down and ensure a diverse and talented future pipeline of politicians." Robust debate and scrutiny are essential aspects of our democratic process, and we must lead by example and conduct ourselves in a civil way. When politics isn't civil and respectful, this is also a threat to our democracy. Voters don't like it, and politicians on the receiving end certainly don't like it. Please support this motion and ensure a civil and respectful campaigning at North Tyneside and set the tone wider. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to second this motion and think we really need it in this council. Healthy debate is good. Disagreeing well is good. Behaviour, the words used, the tone in which it is delivered, in person or otherwise, all matters to our democracy and the consequent trust that people have in politicians. It is an honour and a privilege to represent our communities, and we must do this whilst adhering to the Nolan principles, particularly respect. The Debate Not Hate campaign, launched by the Local Government Association, is worth signing up to. It aims to raise public awareness of the role of councillors in their communities, encourage healthy debate, and improve responses and support for local politicians facing abuse, intimidation, and bullying. I call on members to reflect on their own behaviours and interactions and call for a safer environment for all to carry on their elected role. There is no place in North Tyneside for bad manners, ageism, misogyny, untruths, abuse, bullying and intimidation. It is getting worse and can cross the line into dangerous situations for some. 7 out of 10 councillors reported experiencing abuse or intimidation, according to the LGA's 2022 councillor census. It has to stop, and I would like to second this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Do anyone wish to speak on this motion? Councillor Johnson.
I'd like to move an amendment, please, Chair.
Okay. Can we have the amendment passed around, please? Councillor Johnson, do you have a second on this amendment? Councillor Bowen. Councillor Johnson, would you like to speak on your amendments?
Yes, thanks, Chair. As you can see, it's just a very short amendment there to include members of the LGBT plus community in there as well. Just want us to say a little bit. The Conservative group really does want to support this motion. The horrific murders of Joe Cox and subsequently David Amess remind us all of the very real risks faced by elected representatives up and down the UK. As we've heard, a survey undertaken by the Joe Cox Foundation in 2022 found that 88% of local councillors experienced abuse and intimidation. I'm sure this is something all of us can relate to here in the chamber. As we move into a very lively election season and a very challenging political landscape, we all do need to remind ourselves that we are opponents and not enemies, and that we have a collective responsibility to ensure that we are all able to campaign safely, put forward our ideas to the people of this borough without feeling threatened. We also call upon all councillors to take the civility pledge and to share this on their social media, and for the debate not hate kit to be built into the inductions of all elected members. As Jo Cox said in her own maiden speech to Parliament, we are far more united and have far more in common than that which divides us. Thank you, Chair.
Does anybody wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we of the Community Independent Group agree with the amendment. We'd just like to mention as well, especially in these times when we've got cases such as Diane Abbott, where there's been anti-black racism, and Zara Sultana, who's had, she's one of the most abused MPs in 2023. This has to stop. We have to start working together and ensure that politics is a safe place for everyone.
Anyone else? Councillor Hannah Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. We are more than happy to accept that amendment, and I'd also like to thank Councillor Pakalenda for bringing this motion to the Council. As councillors, we are all leaders in our community, and the tone in which we debate is the one that is set in North Tyneside as a whole. Indeed, I'm thrilled that the Council have recently passed the hate crimes policy. We signed up to a disability employment charter and signed an anti-racism promise, along with the ethnic diversity staff network. And I would like to thank the Equalities team of officers for the work on that. We are also working with councillors and officers to develop a SIM policies for our LGBT community. It's absolutely a priority for this Labour Council that every single resident should feel safe, secure and be able to thrive in North Tyneside. We are aware, however, that the job is not done, especially when it comes to civility within public life. As we've heard in the last few years, 2 members of Parliament have been killed and 22% of local councillors surveyed in 2022 said that they have been subject to abuse themselves. We are also far too aware that the abuse faced by women councillors, councillors from minority ethnic backgrounds and disabled councillors, as well as LGBT councillors, face further abuse, which is simply unacceptable. The Joe Cox Civility Commission's work with this report is incredibly important. And as a member of Labour Party staff who was working for the party the day that Joe Cox was murdered, I never wish to live a day like that again. The idea that somebody who was simply doing their job as a member of Parliament, holding a surgery like everyone in this chamber does, and never return home at the end of the day is simply too much to bear. The fact that this was then the same tragic fate that met Sir David Amess just a few years later shows that there is something wrong with the course of public debate in our country. I do believe, however, that we want to do better, no matter which party we belong to. Treating each other with civility and courtesy is one of the most important things that we can do. Along with the Joe Cox Commission, the work that the Local Government Association have been doing with the Debate Not Hate Toolkit is absolutely something I would hope every single member of this chamber would sign up to as well. Lending all our voices to the idea that whilst debate is healthy and essential to democracy, a red line is drawn when it becomes less about discussion and more about intimidation. Joe Cox's words in believing that we have more in common than divides us is absolutely something we as council should always keep in mind in the example we show our residents here in North Tyneside. And I really hope that everybody can support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. We're happy to support this motion, as Councillor Johnson says, and we agree that we should be able to disagree amicably. And that involves having respect for each other, having respect for the rules and having respect for the processes, particularly in this chamber. We're happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Sorry, can I just say one more thing, Chair, in relation to the civility pledge? I would the offers there for anybody who would like to take that pledge and go on to social media with me from the other side and to actually lift that pledge up and show it. And I think that's something really positive we can actually do together to basically show we are serious about this issue.
Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's a great pity that we've come to a situation that a motion like this is even required in this chamber. I think that's a very sorry situation that we find ourselves in. That said, with regard to the civility pledge, in the independent group, we have always set a respectful tone whilst campaigning, and we have always promoted constructive debate, and we are happy to support this. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Thirlway.
Chair, thank you. Obviously, I support the motion and I support the amendment, but the irony of us talking about civility tonight after what we witnessed. The behaviour directed at the chair tonight has been disgusting. And I think members of the Conservative group can disagree with the chair and they can have no confidence in the chair. That's perfectly fine. But I think the behaviour that we witnessed tonight has just been plain wrong. And I think the Conservative group owe the chair of the council an apology for their behaviour.
Can we now go to the votes on the amendment? On the amendment. It's on the amendment.
So responding to Councillor Thirlway, I think that's ridiculous. And we're trying to talk now about the difference between scrutiny and debate, and then where that leads into personal abuse. But you clearly don't understand the line. This was scrutinising a council decision, which was taking items off of the floor of the council, so we could not talk about it. Of course, we're going to try and stand up for that. But to say that that's abusing the chair and then we owe the chair an apology is ridiculous. And I think you need to have another read of that motion because you clearly don't understand it.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Actually, I suspect that my thunder's been stolen really on this one, but I quite agree. Councillor Thirlway needs to draw the distinction between abuse, intimidation and bullying. I think that's it was Councillor Graham's comment and was looking across at us. We're not guilty of that whatsoever. In fact, we were actually trying to raise a legal issue and were not being allowed to do so. And Councillor Thirlway needs to realise that and draw the distinction between the two of them. Think carefully. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Leonard Parker, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so moving forward, thank you very much for that amendment. As a member of the LGBTQ plus community, I appreciate that. And of course, it was in my speech as well. I just did miss it from the motion. I think moving forward, what elected members can do now is, first of all, lead by example, but also, as was mentioned, endorse the recommendations of the Joe Cox Foundation, and then your name will be put up on a list and for all of our residents to see. And again, signing the pledge and sharing it on your social media and campaigning would be a really positive step to show our residents that this motion is not just a tick box exercise. It's something that's meaningful and we're all going to take forward and believe in for a healthy and civil campaign. Thank you.
Can we now go to the vote on the amendment?
And members, please vote now. Has everybody voted? All members have voted. I'll close the vote.
The amendment is carried. 53 votes for, no abstentions. No one voted against. Carried. Now we go to the substantive motion. I don't know if anybody wishes to speak on the substantive motion, or do you want to go to Councillor Bones?
Thank you, Chair. Just further to Councillor Thirlway's point and following on from what Councillor Scargill said, I think it's really important that within the remits of civility and politics, we had acknowledged that there shouldn't be any issues that are out of bounds for this chamber to discuss. This is where we find extremism and where we find we start to see people being uncivil towards each other, is when issues are pushed to the fringes. So there should be no issue that is not able to be debated and disagreed over, yes, on the floor of this chamber, but we should not have a member abusing their power to block that debate. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just say that I never blocked any debate? The motions were not allowed because I had advice from legal on motion number 8, so it was not. And the other two were not seen as emergency motions by legal advice from legal and by the chair. Yes, so they were not put through. Thank you.
I propose we move the vote, please, Chair.
Vote now on the substantive motion.
There's a member indicated before Carl asked to go to the vote, but apparently we don't have debate even on the Labour side these days.
Go on to vote. Those in favour of the substantive motion.
Members request a recorded vote, please, if that's the system you want to use. Members, please vote. If all members have voted, I'll close the vote.
53 for the substantive motion agreed, no abstentions and no one voted against. The substantive motion was carried.
Chair, before going to the next item, can I request a 5-minute recess, please? 5-minute break.
Agreed. Okay, 5 minutes. Okay. Right. Councillor Carl Johnson, do you wish to move your motion?
Thank you, Chair. We've wrote this motion as non-politically as we possibly could because it's ultimately about getting underspend government money for North Tyneside for shovel-ready schemes. Time after time after time, we've put bids to all levelling up funds and we've been turned down time after time after time. And, you know, if that money was being spent elsewhere, you can think, oh, well, but it wasn't. Michael Gove returned £2 million from the Department for Levelling Up Communities and Housing back to the Treasury. £2 billion, sorry, back to the Treasury. We're not asking for all that £2 billion. We just want our fair share. So we're asking that we write to the government to ask them to give us our fair share, give us some of that underspent money, and money that's clearly not going to be spent further down the line as well, Chair. I could be incredibly political. I'll try not to be. If the right reply needs it to be, I will be. But for now, Chair, hope all members across the chamber can support this motion.
No.
Chair, I'll second the motion.
Does anybody wish to speak on the motion? Councillor McAlpine.
I'd like to move an amendment, please, Chair.
We have a copy of the amendment. Okay, let's get it passed round. Councillor McAlpine, do you have a seconder? Just to see. Councillor Johnson, second. Okay, Councillor McAlpine, do you wish to speak on this amendment?
Thank you, Chair. On the basis of what Councillor Johnson has just said, it should be very easy for him to accept this amendment. Its purpose is to take the politics out of a good motion, the substance of which I'm fairly sure everyone in this chamber fundamentally agrees on. We all want the best for a borough, and I'm very happy the administration is engaging with central government in initiatives like the Future Towns and Levelling Up funds. And I share your frustration that our bids have been unsuccessful. I think we should look forwards to the constructive steps we can take. We all want this money for our area, and we all want to make the best of this opportunity. But taking a swipe at my party and the elected government is completely unnecessary to satisfy the asks of this motion. Members opposite will be aware that our group would find it difficult to support the motion as drawn due to its political content. My amendment doesn't backslap my party or set traps for the party opposite. It simply puts forward a motion that achieves exactly the same, but that everyone in this chamber can get behind. If the party opposite is sincere about seeking consensus where it exists and about taking the politics out of things that needn't be politicised, then they'll accept this amendment. And if so, I'm confident the council will pass the motion unanimously. Then, when the mayor writes to the Conservative Secretary of State, it will be about a motion that commanded the support of Labour councillors, of Conservative councillors, and votes from independent councillors. I really hope this amendment is accepted and taken in the genuine spirit that was moved forward. Thank you.
Do we have anybody wish to speak on this amendment? Councillor Carl Johnson.
Chair, many times over the years, this Labour group has voted against Labour Party policy because we stand up for the residents of North Tyneside, not for the Labour Party. In the Labour Party, nationally and locally, it's area first and country first before party. Clearly in the Conservative Party, it's Conservative Party first, and some members opposite must be really desperate to be on the list of MPs for the Conservative Party. This takes away any responsibility from the government, who time after time after time have rejected our funding bids It's absolutely right we call them out on rejecting our funding bids. It's absolutely right that the Shields Ferry is still in crisis. It's wrong that Shields Ferry is still in crisis because the government have failed to deliver funding on it. It's wrong that we haven't got as far on the Wallsend regeneration because the government have not given us any funding on it. And it's wrong that we have shovel-ready schemes ready to go in the northwest of our borough that the government won't give us any funding on. This Conservative Party need to put the residents of North Tyneside first. It's all right to criticise your own government. We've done it many times. We've criticised the Labour Party many times in the past. And if needs be, when there's a Labour government come the end of this year, we'll criticise them then as well. It's not, Chair, this motion is just absolving the Conservative government who spent 14 years underfunding this borough of any responsibility. And us on the Labour group side, we're not going to have that. But we hope the Conservative group can grow a spine and still support the original motion, Chair.
Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Bartoli?
Thank you. I think we've heard two very different speeches from Councillor Johnson there. The first one was trying to convince us all that this was not political and it was all something that we could happily get behind, and we're all singing off the same song sheet. And then as soon as that's actually put to the test, I think Councillor Johnson showed his true colours and shown that he's more interested in playing politics with the people of North Tyneside in this chamber than he is in actually getting some consensus. We've just had a really good motion, a constructive motion about civility in politics, and before that we agreed to remove a part of the dental motion, which, as I think you described, backslap the Tories. I think in the same spirit, it would be a great opportunity for Councillor Johnson to show perhaps the ability that we've shown on this side to remove the party politics from motions so that we can all get a consensus.
Does anybody else wish to speak on this motion? Can we go to the vote on the motion? On the amendment, sorry. Name vote. Is it?
Open the vote, please. Members, please vote. Have all members voted? Close the vote now.
Sorry. For the vote, 8, abstentions 2, against 41. The amendment falls. Can we now go to the motion? Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. In Councillor Johnson's speech just there, he talked about the government taking the blame for not giving North Tyneside either of the Levelling Up grants. Now, I just wanted to put a little bit of context to that, because we've had a look actually at the response from the government to the Levelling Up grants, and there's a couple of really interesting paragraphs in there. One of them on the Wallsend bid says the cost-benefit analysis section mentioned that the economic costs had not been adjusted for price inflation. This approach was incorrect, and costs represented real values in relation to the economic benefits. This is again an example of the Labour Party opposite trying to play party politics, trying to cry there's not enough money because of inflation when the DLUHC guidance was very clear on it. This is an example of party politics getting in the way of investment in North Tyneside, and that's unfortunately what we're seeing with the party opposite. We also see within the bids several examples where the government describes the bids as ambiguous, as lacking in detail. That's the reason that the bids don't come to North Tyneside, not because of the government, because of the failures of this mayor and this cabinet. And that is the fundamental reason that bids were awarded elsewhere. The Conservative group tried to take the politics out of this. Councillor Johnson firmly put the politics back in this, and as a result, we won't be supporting this.
Councillor Mayor Redfern.
If I remember rightly, it's not so long ago where Councillor Bones blamed our officers for not being able to write the bids well enough, if you remember that. And if Councillor Bones thinks this mayor in this cabinet have failed these people in the borough. I would like to see how he thinks so.
Anyone else wish to speak on this motion?
Chair, on a point of
Councillor
clarification.
Scargill. Councillor Scargill.
Oh, I think just to respond to Mayor Redfern, I think Councillor Bones made it very clear how he felt that the administration had failed when it came to submitting these bids. I think it's very regrettable that Councillor Carl Johnson refused to accept this amendment, which would have simply taken the politics out of it. I think the reality is that Councillor Carl Johnson and the local Labour group don't care about North Shields. They don't care about Wallsend. As I said a year ago, if one of these bids had been for Whitley Bay, it would have gone through. It would have been produced better and better quality. The reality is that they just care about getting cheap political stunts, forcing us to vote against things which we, the substance of it, we do agree with. But you refuse to accept this amendment, which would have brought the whole chamber together. I think it's entirely regrettable that you've done that. Thank you.
Chair, on a point of clarification, the Mayor has just referred to me by name and asked where I think her and her cabinet have gone wrong, and I'd just like to quickly respond to that. We have seen council tax up by 4.99%. We've seen brown bins charged for. We've seen our roads falling apart. We've seen millions of pounds on cycle paths. We've seen millions of pounds on a bus station with an impact on this council's finances, and all the while the Mayor has protected her chauffeur-driven car and her luxuries.
That has nothing
Thank you, Chair.
whatsoever to do with this amendment. You might get that political speech by Councillor Bones. Right, Councillor. Right, yes, you can have a right reply since Councillor Bones.
Chair, the Mayor's already spoken on this matter.
So had Councillor Bones.
No, he had a right to reply, Chair.
And he's having the right to reply.
Chair, point of order, Chair, that the Mayor does not have another right to speak.
She's having the right to reply to what Councillor Bones has just said.
There is no right to reply, Chair.
When we get legal advice.
Get a point of clarification here.
Sorry, the members are entitled to raise points of explanation or clarification where they've been named. Councillor Bones has done that in respect of when he was named. It's a matter for the chair whether he wishes to allow the elected mayor to do the same.
Doesn't matter.
That's fine. Right. Councillor Johnson, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Chair. The big point which Councillor Scargill, Councillor Bones failed to overlook was in both rounds of the Levelling Up Fund so far, the average score of the bids that have won are above 90%. Because the Conservative government decided North Tyneside was a priority 2 area, it capped our bids at 80%. So regardless of the bid that North Tyneside put in, no matter how good this bid was, we are capped at 80% as a score maximum. All of the bids that were successful for Levelling Up funding were above that because the Conservative government simply does not care about North Tyneside. Councillor Bones had a pre-prepared speech that wasn't political somehow. It's remarkable. I have the full confidence of our officers putting in these submissions. They work incredibly hard on these submissions. What also happens is that the government announced Levelling Up funding with a matter of weeks, and officers of councils, not just North Tyneside, but all over the country, scramble around to try and put bids together because the government give incredibly short timescales for issues of massive importance to our local areas. It's completely abhorrent to suggest that these bids were not good enough. These bids had clear priorities. What did Councillor Bones, as a North Shield councillor, not want the ferry landing relocated? Did he not want improvements on Bedford Street? Did he not want business grants for businesses in North Shields? Because we certainly do on this side. Councillor Bones proves time and time again he'll put party before North Tyneside, and he continues to do so today. As we've just reiterated there, our bids were ready to go. We've got schemes still ready to go. The Conservative Party in North Tyneside continue to try to undermine this council with half-truths and mistruths. No matter what bids we submitted to the Levelling Up Fund, we will not be successful because we're doing it with one hand behind our back because the government has limited our scores at 80%. The Conservative Party in North Tyneside opposite need to grow a spine and stand up to their government for once. Stand up for the residents of North Tyneside, rather standing by and supporting government policies. Thank you, Chair.
we'll now go to the vote.
Excuse me, so I was named, so can I get a right to reply? Right to apply?
That indicated
You have the right to reply, Councillor Scargill.
Okay, thank you. So I would just like to know if
Chair, there's no such thing as a right to reply. There's a point of personal explanation in the order. I want to hear the personal explanation. It's got to be a personal explanation. It's not your chance just because you've been named to have a reply. It's got to be within what I've said with reference to Councillor Scargill. It's not just a chance, like Councillor Bones disgracefully did before, to have a rant about things that were not relevant to the motion. It has to be a point of personal explanation, and this really needs to be enforced from the chair if it is to continue.
Point of
to not be
explanation.
that.
Thank you. I think it would be interesting to know if Councillor Carl Johnson disagrees with the criticisms made by Councillor Bones, and further, if he thinks that this administration is failing North Shields, Wall's End and the North West, and if he thinks that as soon as possible we can get a local Conservative mayor in who will deliver for North Tyneside. Thank you.
We've had the right reply. We've had the right reply. We're going to the vote.
Chair, I think our colleague did have a hand up in
We've also, I'm sorry I missed that, but we're going to the vote.
I would like
We've
to
had
move
the
a
right
motion without notice to allow to disregard the rule and allow Councillor Davis to make her speech.
I'm going to the
Point of order, Chair. It was quite Councillor Davis put her hand up after I started my right to reply at the end of the motion.
Right, Chair, I've moved a motion without notice.
We're not having a cross floor talk here. I've already said we're going to the vote, and that's where we're going. We're going to the vote.
I've
Chair,
moved a motion without notice.
Too late.
No,
it's going to the vote. Yes, yes.
Chair.
Never mind.
Can I get legal advice on that, Chair, please? I've moved a motion without notice. That can be moved at any point in the meeting.
Yes, but we're going to vote, then you can have your motion without notice after the vote. And okay,
Chair, that would negate the motion. Where's the respect for the rules, Chair?
Chair, there's a deliberate effort to sabotage the meeting.
I'm the chair. We are going to the vote now. Okay? Right. Vote. Electronic vote.
Members all please vote. If members have voted, I'll close the vote.
Those in favour, 43, abstentions 8, none against. Motion's carried.
Chair, I would like to move a motion without notice to disregard the rule and allow Councillor Davis to make her speech.
On what?
Chair, I had indicated before Councillor Johnson, but unfortunately, because there's so much back and forth between the two parties, you didn't see me actually indicating.
Right.
But it was to say that we were going to support the Labour motion, but we did abstain against for the Conservative because of the wording. But it is true, some of these motions shouldn't be politicised because they're actually for the residents of North Tyneside, and we want to make sure that they get the money. And that's the whole aim. We're here to represent residents.
Now we're moving on to motion 5. Chris Johnson, Holly Scargill and Ian McAlpine. Councillor Johnson, you should move it.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to move this motion, please. Thank you.
I'll second, reserve the right, thanks.
Chair, actually the motion when it appears, if it is going to appear. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. When the motion appears, okay, it's actually pretty self-explanatory. Basically, Tynemouth is grinding to a halt as a result of the seafront cycle path development, and the adverse impact upon the business community is profound, as it's all explained up there. But Chair, I would like to make, if I may, 3 additional points that are really, really important. First, it's likely that the adverse effects of these infrastructure projects are not temporary. yes, the Tynemouth section of the seafront cycle path is scheduled to be completed by spring this year, but this scheme has already created a logjam of traffic on all roads into and out of Tynemouth. And this is only March. What is the situation going to be like throughout the summer months? Goodness knows. Undoubtedly, the adverse impact of this scheme has the potential to be long-lasting and not temporary. Nose to tail traffic tries to wend its way down Manor Road, King Edward Road, Tynemouth Road, the Broadway. There's a reduction in parking spaces. There's a significantly reduced footfall. We fear these are to become permanent features of Tynemouth, actually. Most worrying. Secondly, business communities tell me that they need a through flow of cars linked with an extensive and diverse range of parking options. If you're not convinced, then simply take a look at the response by the Tynemouth business community on Facebook and on other social media platforms. And if you're still not convinced, then simply cast your mind back 2 years to the proposed pedestrianisation of Park View in Whitley Bay. You'll undoubtedly remember the outcry by the business community there in response to another ill-considered scheme by North Tyneside Council. I'm sorry, but businesses rely upon a through flow of traffic and an extensive range of parking options, and this provision no longer exists in Tynemouth. Finally, Chair, regarding the implications relating to any financial support for businesses in Tynemouth, as you'll see, the officers advised us that financial support would be outside existing planned expenditure levels. I quite expect somebody will be coming back about this, but let us just say this. Can we ask why, when North Tyneside is considering accepting government funding, does it never look ahead and consider the potential financial impact these infrastructure schemes will have upon the business community, and therefore make appropriate financial provision? This is not only Tynemouth, we've witnessed this on North Shields Fish Quay, where businesses have suffered as a result of the embankment and development. It's obvious that a wider perspective needs to be taken when availing ourselves of government grants. And let's just go back to this motion, Chair. As an interim approach, will the Mayor and will the Cabinet please explore support measures for the business community in Tynemouth along the lines of those we have suggested up there? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Does anybody wish to speak on this motion? Councillor Davis and then Councillor Wallace. Councillor Davis first.
Thank you, Chair. I have to support this motion because I've had residents, business community in, which I have a question later, from North Shields who have suffered substantial loss in revenue, and some have actually had to close because of the works that have been going on. We do recognise that it is temporary, but it is having an adverse impact. And I think just doing something temporarily to support businesses will be in everyone's interest in the borough.
Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to support this motion. It's very clear that we've got huge problems at the moment which are having a really adverse effect upon our businesses. And so I hope that the measures which are sought can be implemented. I think, however, it's not just affecting our businesses. It's obviously in the interest of the businesses themselves that they survive, but it's in the interest of our residents too. We don't want to see empty units. We don't want to see empty shops. We don't want to see failing businesses, because they're for all our benefit right across the borough that we encourage our towns to thrive. So I have no hesitation in supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Does anybody else wish to speak on this motion? No, then Councillor Carl Johnson. Oh, sorry, Councillor. We've got right.
Thank you, Chair.
Hold on.
The exercise in the right.
No. That's you got the wrong. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. There's been some claims made in this motion that frankly are not true. They talk about the reduced footfall. The council measures footfall, and the footfall all the way through this period has been the same level as it's expected to be in previous years. So while we absolutely accept there's been disruption to road traffic in the Tynemouth area as a result of these schemes, the footfall in Tynemouth and on these streets has not reduced per the counters that we have in place to count this measure, Chair. Also, it's interesting that the council has not received a single bit of correspondence from any Tynemouth business regarding fall in footfall or reduced take-ins, Chair. The footfall and parking demand figures suggest that whilst the works are causing traffic to find alternative routes in Tynemouth, they've been able to do so as pedestrian footfall along this current constructed area remains high. We will always recognise that businesses face numerous challenges. And we're absolutely right, in North Shields, in a very different situation where literally the entire one access to the North Shields Fish Quay was blocked off, Chair. It's right that in North Shields we did consider that. And if any business in Tynemouth wishes to come to this council and can show us they've adversely had an impact with regards to their financial well-being, we will always consider business rate relief as we would with any business in any part of this borough, not just North Shields and Tynemouth, if any of the schemes would do so. But that's, Chair, it's very clear in North Shields when we did the counters, it quite clearly showed a drop in footfall and drop in activity on the North Shields Fish Quay. In Tynemouth, what it's not shown is that the people parking in Tynemouth are still exactly the same level as they have been in previous year, or consistent with previous years, and the level of football is consistent with previous years, Chair. We accept that while works have been going on Beach Road and Broadway, there has been disruption to traffic getting in and out. This work will be finished along with phase 1 in May. And Councillor Chris Johnson talks about what the summer's going to be like. Well, actually, when the phase 1 work finishes in May, the summer will be open, and it will be completely open right along the coast because there'll be no more works over the busy summer period in Tynemouth, which is what this council's always planned to do. It's very interesting, and bearing in mind the cronyism accusations on a national level for the Conservative Party, that the Conservative Party bring a motion when one of its members has a financial interest in said motion. Chair.
Chair, point of order, that's unacceptable. Councillor Johnson should withdraw that remark. Councillor Bartoli has left the room and had no part in this motion.
Councillor Johnson, I think he's right on this. I think you can't just say that
about. Chair, in Councillor Bartoli has had to declare why he's at the meeting. He declared he's got an interest in this meeting.
You've just accused Councillor Bartoli of cronyism.
I did not. I said considering the accusations.
Excuse me, can we not talk again across the floor again? Could you just repeal the part where you mentioned Councillor Bartoli's name?
If you wish me to, Chair, I'll follow your lead on that, but I will withdraw that remark, Chair, if you wish me to. Chair, it's very interesting that we see motions like this brought forward when, frankly, the businesses that have engaged with the council have not said that there's a reduction in footfall and reduction taken directly to the council. As we say, if any businesses in Tynemouth want to come forward, we'll always take it on a case-by-case basis, Chair. And Councillor Chris Johnson did talk about the budget there and rightly looked at the financial implications, Chair. When you look at the financial implications of this motion, the officers quite rightly point out there is no money identified in the budget for any of these provisions, Chair. I know it's the done thing by all the opposition groups in North Tyneside to not bring forward motions and not decide where you're going to spend money from, Chair. But frankly, you need to bring forward where you're going to get this money from if you want to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds potentially of taxpayers' money on supporting businesses, because the Conservative government has cut £140 million from our budget over the last couple of years. They've forced us to put council tax up time and time again. This council financially has got the lowest levels of reserves allowable. If you were going to bring forward motions that are spending hundreds of thousands of pounds, you should point out where in the budget you're going to cut to allow this to go forward, or where you're going to use reserves. But the reserves are at the lowest usable level they can be. So you need to point out in the budget where you're going to find this money from, Chair. Otherwise, it's just navel gazing because you know that this can't come forward unless you find the money.
Councillor Scargill.
Thank you, Chair. And just to say, I think Councillor Carl Johnson should refer back to the debate not hate motion, because I think that was unacceptable, and I'm glad that he's withdrawn the remark. I think that to not appreciate the impact that standstill traffic in Tynemouth is having on business is a bit patronising, really. We all know that it's so difficult to get parts in Tynemouth, and it's only going to get worse with the huge station development, which has no parking, which I don't seem to understand why. But I think we can all feel the impact that it's having on local businesses. You take to social media and see the response that this motion got on social media from people who use businesses, from businesses themselves. It's not political. It's just about the fact that these massive infrastructure projects, which a lot of people didn't even want, are being imposed on them. That's causing massive disruption. It speaks to a larger issue, a wider issue. We're getting these infrastructure projects. Another one, like at the Rake Lane roundabout. I don't know what consultation there was. No one was asked if they wanted it. Nobody wanted it. And what we were saying is we would say in this council hundreds of thousands of pounds.
That's irrelevant. Talking about the roundabout, that's irrelevant. This is
just
about
about the infrastructure projects. But responding to Carl, we would say the council hundreds of thousands of pounds by not doing these huge vanity projects, which are unwanted, very unpopular. Unfortunately, this is the mayor's legacy. So many vanity projects across the borough that people do not want. Thank you.
Point of personal explanation, Chair, was named by the member, and I will still explain a point which Councillor Scargill made. Councillor Scargill, you talk about vanity projects, you talk about spending money elsewhere. You know, and have been told time and time again in this chamber, Councillor, you've been told time and time again in this chamber that money is ring-fenced government money from your government that can't be used for any other areas, Chair. You're accusing us of just having vanity projects and spending money on projects that can be spent elsewhere. It's not. It's ring-fenced money that can only be spent there, Chair.
Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, Councillor Johnson and the Labour Party opposite must have their fingers in their ears if they don't think that football in Tynemouth is down. I mean, they really just need to listen to the businesses in Tynemouth. They've got some comments here from the businesses. I'm the owner of Vineyard 72 in Tynemouth, and you have our full support on this motion. Many thanks for doing this. Regular Joe's Coffee Shop, yes, you have my full support. Ruby and Frank, so many weekend visitors are now queuing around for 40 minutes just to get near the village, only to find no parking and leaving. Not everyone can catch a metro, and the service at weekends is poor. It's really difficult for our staff who often get dropped off too. And the Doghouse in Tynemouth says, yes, absolutely support this 100%. Now, Councillor Johnson doesn't think that any of these businesses have been impacted by a massive one-way system, by nose-to-tail traffic through Tynemouth, not just through Tynemouth, through Cullercoats, all the way down the coast, every weekend since this harebrained scheme began work on the ground. And unfortunately, this is just another example of this mayor spending millions of pounds on vanity projects like the Seafront Cycle Path instead of investing in residents' priorities. Perhaps if the mayor and cabinet listened to the businesses, they would realise that footfall is down in Tynemouth. They would realise that businesses in Tynemouth are struggling, and then they would have no problem supporting this motion. There's one final point I'd like to pick up on, which is from Councillor Johnson, who mentioned the lowest reserves ever in this council. And that is true. And that is unfortunately because of the financial mismanagement by this mayor and cabinet, who have splashed millions of pounds on vanity projects instead of protecting crucial services like brown bins and ploughing millions into cycle paths. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I'm going to point a personal explanation again, Chair, because I was accused of having my fingers in my ears to Tynemouth businesses there. What I clearly said in my speech was, if Tynemouth business want to get in touch with the council on a case-by-case basis, we'll always talk through what support is available, as every other business in the borough was. I was accused, Chair, again, Chair, from Councillor Bones, of saying Tynemouth business hadn't suffered. What I said was the footfall data. I didn't say Tynemouth business, I said the footfall data is consistent with previous years. I did not say that Tynemouth business had not suffered. So I'll ask Councillor Bones to withdraw both of those remarks, Chair, because he's completely and utterly took my words out of context and said completely different things to what I actually said.
Councillor Bones?
Chair, Councillor Johnson said both of those things in his speech.
So you understand.
Councillor Jameson first, then Councillor.
Thank you. I would just like to start by saying that actually this council is in a far better financial state than many other councils in the region, and I think that should be acknowledged. The second thing I would say is this motion is very difficult to know whether to support or go against it, because it's basically saying consider something without actually saying what it is that you're considering. So yes, I'm sure there are some businesses that are suffering some problems because of development that might well be very good in the long term, but without actually saying whether or not we're going to be able to provide any financial recompense to those businesses. It seems to be a bit nonsensical to just say we'll consider it. In my opinion, that's slightly meaningless.
Sir Frank Lott.
Thank you, Chair. I hesitate to speak because I'm bound to get interrupted, but we'll have a go. I'd like to thank Councillor Jameson, first of all, for saying what she said. That was exactly what I was going to say. If it hadn't been for the sound financial management of this council over the last decade or so, then we would have been sadly like others. And this is not a political comment, because local government, local councils of both, well, of all political colours are going broke, are issuing section 114 notices advising their staff that they can no longer be secure in their employment. This council hasn't closed any swimming pools, it hasn't closed any libraries. We've maintained our services, and that's because of sound financial management by good officers and hard-working councillors. What the motion actually very conveniently doesn't mention, as you would expect, is the fact that we're going through a 14th year of austerity, is it? We're now going through, or we're just coming out of recession. We've had families in financial hardship for nearly a decade now. The only business that's booming in this borough is food bank business. And that's because of the government that these people here are trying to speak for locally, and they should be ashamed of their attitude, as they should be ashamed of their behaviour tonight. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Johnson, you have the right to reply. Councillor
Thank
Davis,
you,
you
Chair.
already spoke. You already spoke. You spoke at the beginning. You're going to put an amendment to the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
In light of what Councillor Johnson said about the businesses, I think we should just put that, well, we think that the community independent, we should just put, if business can evidence that there's been as a negative impact. Because then you've got equity, then you've got an equitable with the North Shields, because they've had help to support businesses, but only if they can evidence it.
Councillor Davis, where would you want this amendment, and can you? Does everybody want a sight of this amendment?
Where it's got paragraph 3, after the ongoing infrastructure, where businesses can evidence that there has been a negative impact, the council will consider implementing a rent relief scheme.
Do you have a seconder for this amendment? Councillor Fox. Does anybody wish to speak on this amendment? Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. I think the Conservative group would be perfectly happy to support Councillor Davis's amendment on the condition that the Labour group are happy to support it too. What we've heard so far is excuses and excuses from the party opposite as to why businesses in Tynemouth can't receive support, because it's everyone's fault. It's the fault of the government, it's the fault of the businesses themselves, it's everything we've heard, but it's never the fault of the authority. So as long as the Labour Party opposite will accept the motion as amended by Councillor Davis, then we would be happy to accept that amendment as well. The only other point I would like to make on it is in response to Councillor Jameson's point regarding the wording of the motion, which does say that asks the council to look into providing financial support. And there's a really clear reason for that, and that unfortunately goes back to the issue with motions and with getting motions through this chair, because the chair now insists that there can be no financial implication of a motion for it to be accepted. So I appreciate it's a bit waffly, the wording of the amendment. It's not what we would like the amendment, so the wording of the motion, it's not how we would like to have had it written. But in order to be able to pass it so it can be debated on the floor of this chamber, this is exactly how we've been told we have to write it. So I agree with Councillor Jameson wholeheartedly, and if the Labour group will support Councillor Davis's amendment and therefore the substantive motion, then we'd be happy to as well.
Does anybody wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Carl Johnson.
Chair, we will not be supporting the amendment, but we submit our own amendment. I've emailed it to Sonia Stewart.
Right. Okay, so we're now going to vote. No, I've got Councillor Johnson can speak on this amendment. In right reply. Councillor Johnson.
Like to reply to it, to tell you the truth. Councillor Jameson, it does say explore in there, you know, request the Mayor and Cabinet to explore support measures, sorry. And that's for a reason, because obviously we need to look into this, and we just gave a raft of suggestions down below. Okay. Councillor Lott, as usual, went off at a tangent. Okay. You know, this particular issue is specific to Tynemouth. It's nothing to do with food banks and doesn't actually require him to talk about food banks in this context and the Conservative government. Actually, and that I don't think you need to interrupt me, please. Thank you.
Your conduct tonight, give up.
Thank you. And as a consequence, you know, he went over the tangent and it has no linking and bearing at this stage what he had to say with regard to Conservative government. I'm happy to go with the amendment, okay, with Councillor Davis, okay, and let's see it read and up there first. Let's see it up there first, and then we'll look carefully at it. Thank you very much.
Councillor Johnson's had his right to reply. We'll now go to the vote.
Chair, can we have a name vote?
And we'll open a vote, please, on the amendment that's proposed by Councillor Davis. All members voted. Close the vote.
Sorry, those in favour 2, abstentions 1, against 45. The amendment has failed. Now we're going back to the substantive motion.
Chair, I've sent the motion in. It's going to take Democratic Services some time to obviously get it printed for everyone. Can I suggest we put a pin in this and move on to the next motion and come back to this afterwards, Chair? Bearing in mind the time is 8:30 and we only have 3.5 hours to run our council and there's still lots of business left.
Agreed.
We have to get Councillor Bartoli back in and then kick him back out. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Going to motion 6 now. Right, they'll come back to this amendment at the end of it. Okay, we're now moving to motion 6. I invite Councillor Davis to move this motion. And do you have a second? That just saves some.
Yes, I'm seconding. Right, reserve the right to speak.
Thank you, Chair. UK employers paying the voluntary real living wage will be asked to deliver a double-digit pay increase for the second year running, helping to repair living standards as inflation starts to subside. The Living Wage Foundation, a charity that campaigns for fair pay, said that on Tuesday it was increasing its national living wage rate from £10.90 to £12 an hour in 2024, following the similar increase in 2022. The foundation sets the voluntary rate annually based on what a range of families need to get by, including rent, childcare and travel costs with other basic needs. A full-time worker on the new voluntary rate would earn £3,801 a year more than if they were paid the current UK statutory minimum, it said. With over 70% of children in poverty in the North East now from working households, it is imperative that households have enough to live on and enable them to live decent lives. The accreditation is in process, which is a process which both Newcastle and Sunderland councils have completed. This has enabled wider work to develop, with both cities launching as living wage cities. To do so requires a local authority to be accredited and to chair. It is enormously effective at tackling poverty in a city, bringing employers together to work collectively on a strategic plan. Tyne Wear citizens are actively campaigning on the real living wage in the North East, and their work needs to be applauded. 28 businesses in North Tyneside are already paying the real living wage, and 151 authorities are real living wage employers. I understand that the new wage increases that come into effect with the pay review that we've just voted on will be paying the real living wage eventually, but we need to be encouraging other employers to do so and become accredited. And we need to explore these costs and how they can maybe factored into the budgeting process for future years to ensure that we can become accredited to be with a living wage status and ensure employees and services contracted out are paying the real living wage. Please support this motion.
Does anybody wish to speak on this motion?
Move an amendment, Chair. I've already sent it in much earlier in the day.
Okay, can we have the amendment passed round?
I'm happy to speak on it while it's getting passed round, Chair, because it's very simple.
All right.
This supports everything that you want to do in the motion, Kath, but what it does just point out is that North Tynes, for the quirk of the situation with the living wage, is that they announced their living wage in October, and the council set its wage in April. So for the last financial year, that was the £10.90 living wage, which is what we're currently in now, for the financial year we're currently in now. We pay £11.49 to our staff, so above that living wage. And come this financial year, the £12 that was set by the Living Wage Foundation in October, we once again pay at a minimum or above that level. So it's absolutely still supporting all the items to explore being accredited and stuff, but it's just pointing that out that the council has in the past paid the living wage and will continue in the future pay the living wage. I know you did have discussions with the officer on this, Kath, as well, but it's not changing anything, just adding that in, Kath.
Does anybody wish to speak on this amendment? And is it seconded first?
Chair,
seconder?
Chair, we've only just received it. Just have a
Okay, then. I'll let you read it. But did we have a seconder for this amendment? Councillor Early, sorry. Okay, the amendment's still on the floor now. I think the explanation to Conservative group from officers has been had. Got it? The explanations, yeah. Okay, right. Councillor, right, anybody wish to speak on this amendment? Nobody wishes to speak on the amendment, right? Can we, oh, Councillor,
I'd just like to say we're quite happy with this amendment.
right, so we go to the vote on this name vote.
Can we open a named vote, please? Can members please vote? All members voted? Close the vote.
Sorry, Chair, I have a further amendment to the motion. Sorry. It's a pretty simple one. So after point 3 within the motion, it adds, if the council becomes a living wage employer, and then continues as is. And the reason for this amendment, and it has been submitted in writing, is the Conservative group don't feel it would be appropriate for the council to be encouraging other employers in North Tyneside to become accredited real living wage employers if the council isn't. And I appreciate from what Councillor Johnson said within his amendment, that currently the council is, but that may not always be the case. So the reason for the amendment is just to make sure that for as long as we are, as an authority, living wage employers, real living wage employers, we can encourage it, but we should never be encouraging others to do what we're not doing ourselves.
Councillor Johnson, great. Okay,
Yeah, can we just move straight to vote? Happy to agree that, Chair.
excellent. Great. Yeah, take that. Councillor Bartley. Right, can we now go to the votes?
Can I just, before they got the vote, can I just say, can we change where it's got 20 organisations to 28 as well? Because I had got that figure wrong at the beginning, the first line. And we're quite happy with the amendment from the Conservatives.
Yeah, you can change your motion, you're the mover, so yes, if you wish to change that. So what does it say now? 28, okay, then that's fine. Is that okay? Name vote, go to the vote.
Could we open a named vote, please? So we're voting on the amendment that's been put forward by Councillor, the Conservative group. So we're voting on an amendment. If all members have voted, I'll close the vote.
Unanimous on the amendment. Now,
Councillors, yours not worked again.
no,
Can we run the vote again, please? So this is again voting on the amendment from the Conservative group. All members voted. We're done. Close the vote.
the vote is unanimous. Right, so can we now go straight to the substantive motion?
And ask all members to vote on the substantive motion, please. All members voted. Close the vote.
Vote is unanimous, carried. Can we now go back to motion 5? Councillor Bartoli, you have to. Could you get Matthew as well? He's come back, right? Right, where were we? Councillor Funk. Okay, we need, I think it's the amendment is now going round for motion 5 amendment.
Councillor Johnson, who seconded your amendment? I didn't recall that. Oh, yes, sorry.
Chair, I'm happy to speak while members are reading if you wish me to.
Might be fair. Give them a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I think Councillor Bones indicated the Conservative group are ready to go on if everyone else is.
Councillor Carl Johnson.
Chair, taking politics out of motions and trying to get support for business community, this is, we're happy, as I said in my speech at the start before it got a bit tetchy, always happy to support any business that can evidence that they've taken losses, and we always would have done so. We didn't want to amend this motion in the first place because the amendment as it looks has just taken out so much of the original motion, and it just looks like it's a Labour group fixing a Conservative motion again, which I've been accused of time and time again. After tonight, I'll never take that accusation about amendments from the Conservative group ever again. Chair, but this is just trying to get support business community in time out where they need it and if they need it. It's not including the stuff where it's, we look at every option available there, but it has taken out mentions of certain options just because they're not costed and they would need to be costed, and therefore we will look at all of those when we are exploring the support needed, Chair, but as they're not costed at the moment, I think it's right to take them out. So I'd ask all members to support us to try and, we accept there has been some disruption to time of residence and time as business residents. We do maintain footfall is still at the same level and car parking levels are absolutely the same, but we absolutely will take a look at support for resident business and time out as we would any other area of the borough.
Does anybody wish to speak? Councillor Redford.
I would like to support that because I think it's really important at the end of the day that we do listen to people. We always have done, and we will continue to do that. And if it is evidence that people have suffered, it's incumbent upon us to do something about it. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Davis, then Councillor Macro.
Yeah, the Community Independent Group would like to support this as long as we get some help. If it says what it is on the tin, so for us that's fine.
Councillor McAlpine.
I just ask that when time permits, elected members can have a copy of the data that indicates that football is unaffected.
Right. Councillor Johnson, you have the right to reply.
Chair, we're happy to support this. Thank you.
Okay, can we now go to the vote on this amendment?
Ask members to vote on the amendment. All members have voted. I'll close the vote.
The amendment is carried at 49 votes and none against, unanimous. Back to the substantive motion. Then seconded by.
I ask members to vote now, please, on the substantive motion. All members voted. Close the vote.
The substantive motion is carried unanimously. We're now going to motion 7. Can you ask about all it? Councillor Davis, would you like to move the motion? Do you have a
If I could just perhaps update while I was outside before, I've told his chauffeur that he's going to be a little bit longer. He's sat outside in his chauffeur-driven Jag with the diesel engine running. And I said we may be some time yet because we've still got to the questions to go while the party opposite lectures on financial prudence.
Councillor, thank you for that. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Lots of residents have said to me that they don't feel decisions are made for them and that they feel that they don't have a say. I do try to explain that the council has a policy of engagement. This is mostly done online and the numbers of participants is quite small. I think we need to involve residents more in decision making. Community power is not a party political agenda. It seeks to radically decentralise power while simultaneously placing much greater emphasis on the role of that local communities rather than just businesses or the state should play. Community power is based on the principle that people have insight, experience and capabilities that should play a meaningful role in the big decisions taken by central government, local government and the wider sector. People should have the power to shape their places and communities, should have the rights and tools that they need to come together and take control of their own futures. Community power is essential for tackling problems like inequality, local decline, loneliness and mistrust. The campaign is Building Momentum for a Community Power Act. It's a transformative piece of legislation that would give local people the powers they need to shape the places where they live. Driving forward this campaign by signing the Community Power Pledge, which would show the backing of the Community Power Act, which would establish 3 new community rights to take ownership of spaces, public services and investment, create community covenants to bring local people, organisations and local authorities together and establish a Community Power Commissioner to uphold new community rights. The more voices we have showing their support for the community power, the better chance that we have achieving this transformative change our country needs and deserves. Local communities have the right to a much greater say and involvement in decisions and services that affect their lives and the places they live. This is in part because having influence over decisions that directly affect your life is the core democratic ideal, but also that most communities have a great insight into their own needs rather than imposing decisions from the outside. Systems that place too much power in the hands of central government, state officials or big businesses undermine these basic principles. Locally, this will give people more chance to connect, have greater trust in our local authorities and have a more connected, confident communities. And it's extremely good for individuals' physical and mental health and well-being to be part and know their voices are heard. We will never level up or achieve a more equal economy in society unless communities, particularly those the most excluded communities, have the power to shape the decisions and services that affect their future. Power should reside with them rather than the distant elites who do not understand what's best for these communities. The community power sees local communities have much greater say over the decisions that are taken locally. We've seen this in our own in their own borough when it comes to things like planning applications, the cycleways, and the planning applications such as the Sandpiper, where people have like felt they haven't had a say, but if they were actually part of that process and were on board, we'd have greater trust between the council and our community. And I just think this is a really important piece of legislation, that we could support this legislation, acknowledge the significance of the Community Power Pledge in fostering community participation, recognise the positive impact in empowering communities that they have in decision-making processes, urge all members of Parliament to represent the North Tyneside to actively support and endorse the Community Power Pledge at a national level and commit to working collaboratively with local communities to implement measures that align with the principles of the Community Power Pledge. Please support this motion.
Councillor Davis, does anybody wish to speak on this motion?
I'm seconding the motion.
Councillor, do you wish to speak?
Reserve the right, but I'm seconding.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Davis, for bringing this motion to Council. I want to say that I will be supporting this motion. I don't fully agree with what you've said in presenting the motion, which seems very different to actually what's written in the motion. I have to say that. I'm supporting the motion because I'm a firm believer and a supporter of community empowerment, and I fully understand the many positive benefits of community-led initiatives. Unlike what you said, Councillor Davis, I actually believe the motion reflects and will reinforce the already strong commitment that's in place here in North Tyneside Council. I'm really sorry to hear that some people feel they don't have an opportunity to engage or that they don't feel it appropriate. You said that most of the engagements online. It's not necessarily all online. There are loads of examples within the council about how we actively support initiatives that promote community empowerment, and we have many excellent practical examples of community-led initiatives and examples of the active engagement of our residents and communities in our decision and policy-making processes at a local level. On a personal level, I can say I've worked tirelessly over many years to achieve transfer of power to communities, and it's something I'm really passionate about. It includes my own active engagement in the We're Right Here campaign, which is the campaign that's calling for the Community Power Act. I actually participated in the campaign rally event that took place in Parliament on the 13th of June in 2022. I also know we do have commitment from our North Tyneside national representatives, because the rally event was also actively supported and attended by our MP for North Tyneside constituency, Mary Glindon. Having worked with Mary for over 30 years, I also know she's an avid supporter for community empowerment. Excuse me. I have to say, I agree the campaign's not politically motivated in that sense, and it has gained support from MPs from cross-sector political parties. So I certainly hope it's something we can agree here in Chamber tonight. I'm very pleased to see that Labour Party key representatives, including Lisa Nandy when she was Shadow Secretary for Levelling Up, voiced strong support for community-led initiatives and the transfer of power to communities with initiatives like the Community Right to Buy. Besides all of that, there's also a wealth of evidence that shows how increased active participation of our local people in decision and policy making has a huge and positive impact on health and well-being outcomes, as well as ensuring any actions and interventions are appropriate and meaningful to the people living in our neighbourhoods and communities. So I will support the motion. I do believe in the call for a Community Power Act, and I will support endorsement of the Community Power Pledge. I don't agree with what you said in presenting the motion. However, Councillor Davis, I'll repeat that because it's not my experience here at North Tyneside Council. We are always looking at how we improve things and how we add value to what we're already doing. But we've got countless examples of excellent work where people are co-producing interventions at community levels.
and really having an influence in shaping policy and practice. Poverty intervention's one fantastic example of that. We're working cross-sector, we're working grassroots communities, we're taking proposals to those communities, we're asking them for their experiences and ideas, their lived experience to influence and shape what's happening here in the borough, and it's making our policies targeted and meaningful to the communities we serve. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak?
Oh, sorry, Alex, just thought this idea and concept that we have to work with our communities to be quite honest, that we engage with them all the time. And there's a lot of evidence that we have been doing that in the last number of years, to be quite honest. However, you never get to a level where everyone is satisfied, but we'll continue to work to make sure that we can reach everyone. On the other hand, what is just as important is once you have had that sort of discussion and things can't happen, we need to inform the residents why things can't happen, and then they don't feel as though they're being ignored. Quite often things are decided. I have to tell you, I've been in the world myself for a long, long time. We've put ideas forward. It hasn't materialized. I got upset, but at the end of the day, when somebody took the time to explain to me why it couldn't happen, I begin to have a better understanding. So I think that's important as well. But as far as I'm concerned, the more we actually involve our residents, the better for me.
Bartoli.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to explain why this party is opposing the motion advocating for the Community Power Act. When I first read the motion, I must admit I was a little unclear as to what it was trying to achieve, as it reads like a word salad of virtuous buzzwords and vague language that seems to leave more questions than answers. So I took my time and I went and looked at the pledge online and seemed to be met with a similar jumble of terms like empowerment, sustainability, or community engagement, which obviously mean very different things to different people. And like this motion, were just a veneer to disguise any lack of substantive content. Because I thought I was maybe being a little bit harsh, I took the motion to a resident and showed it to them. And their response was that if you want to engage with the community, then use language that they would understand. They said this is just complete drivel. Now, whilst that's stronger than the language I would use, I think the objectives outlined may seem noble on the surface. It's vital that we as elected members delve deeper in the details of this proposal and recognise the potential pitfalls it poses for our communities. Firstly, the language used in the motion and the pledge itself. It's easy to make grandiose statements about ideals like equality or justice, but the motion and the pledge lack any depth, detail, or meaningful substance, and a little more than empty rhetoric. Ideas like a community power commissioner are ambiguous and undefined. They evoke ideas of empowerment and participation, yet fail to provide any detail on how these powers will be exercised or who will ultimately wield them. This ambiguity leaves room for interpretation and opens the door to potential abuse and misuse of these roles. The proposal seeks to replace elected and accountable community members with unelected entities. By establishing a community power commissioner and granting them powers without democratic oversight, we're effectively stripping away the voice of the people and concentrating power in the hands of the few. This goes against the very principles of democracy and accountability. The notion of creating community covenants to bring together various stakeholders may sound appealing in theory. However, in practice, it risks sidelining elected representatives and circumventing established democratic processes. Who decides which organisations and individuals are included in these covenants? How can we ensure that their interests align with those of the broader community? We also can't overlook the practical implications of implementing such a vague and convoluted system. The proposal suggests granting communities the right to take up ownership of spaces, public services and investment, yet it fails to address crucial questions regarding funding, management, accountability. How will these newly acquired assets be maintained and funded? Who will be held responsible in the event of mismanagement or failure? The Community Power Act is not only unworkable, but is also dangerous. It replaces elected and accountable community members with unelected entities, introduces confusing and ambiguous language, and undermines the foundations of the electoral system. Instead of empowering communities, it risks concentrating power in the hands of a select few and eroding the voice of people. As responsible stewards of our communities, the Conservatives reject this misguided proposal and instead focus on empowering our existing democratic and accountable institutions to better serve the needs of all of our residents.
Anybody else wish to speak on this? Yes. Councillor.
Thank you so much. I would like to support this motion. But as far as my experience as a resident, before I even become a councillor, we have had community engagements where residents are actually asked to come to council to speak about what their worries and what's happening and everything else. Maybe people are actually lacking or are not given enough information to actually know what's happening. Of course, I support the fact that we need the Community Empowerment Act or Community Pledge must be upheld. But all the same, we should always remember that the council has always been supporting residents and giving them information and giving them opportunity to actually come and speak. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is in regard to the motion that we passed before, motion 3. I've just witnessed some kind of bullying.
Councillor, you can't go on to that.
All right, okay. Sorry. Anyways, I just wanted to finish off by saying that as far as I'm concerned, as a person who has been a resident in North Tyneside, I've seen us having the opportunity to come, and people, we even have committees that we are not finding people who want to come and engage so that they can get involved in the improvement of North Tyneside. We have the North Tyneside together. People are being asked to come and join so that we can make the North Tyneside together event together, but people are not coming up. So yes, of course, I do support the Community Empowerment Act just so that the empowerment can be upheld. Thank you.
Sir Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very much in favour of people getting involved in local decision making and taking a very active role in what happens in their local communities and indeed in the wider borough and beyond that, the affairs of the nation. But I do have concerns about this particular motion, which I think is completely unnecessary. We already have a community right to challenge. We have devolved authorities which are producing a lot more, or bringing a lot more power away from the centre, away from Whitehall and into our local areas. And of course, we have our local councillors, and we're all honoured to serve as that. I fear that the measures that are proposed here will be extremely bureaucratic and costly, and probably stultifying in terms of developments. And also that they will be unaccountable. One tends to find that when commissioners are appointed, they absolutely do a topsy and the whole thing grows and grows and little appears to be achieved at the end of it. As I say, I'm very much in favour of people getting involved in their local areas, and I would like to see a much greater involvement and participation in local government elections. It's often concerning, I think, when we hear the voter turnout in the borough, when we hear the results announced, that actually participation in some wards is extremely low. And I would love to see that and greater effort being made to encourage people to participate in elections, because only that way, I think, will we ensure that we have full democratic accountability. The bodies which are suggested here, I fear, are not democratically accountable, and I think that that would be a backward step. Thank you.
Councillor Wallace, Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Wallace. I think it really is a damning indictment of the way this council consults with its residents currently, that it feels the need to support a community power commissioner to empower residents to have their say. I mean, we hear all the time about how the party opposite consults with residents, whether it be on the seafront cycle path or whether it be on the North Shields bus station. But we never actually see those consultation documents come forward. And I think it really is a damning indictment that they feel the need to create covenants and a commissioner and all of these structures to empower residents to have their say when actually there's 61 people in this room who are here for exactly that job, to give our residents their say. I think it's incumbent on all of us to give our residents more time to listen to what they think and to actually go out and find out what people think rather than shouting at each other across this chamber, which I think sometimes the Mayor and Cabinet are too often guilty of. Thank you.
Councillor Carl Johnson.
Chair, I think we've heard enough debate from around the chamber. Can I just remove the vote, please, Chair? Obviously, Councillor Davis gets the right reply, and Michelle, Councillor Fox reserves the right to speak, but.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make the point that, you know, I do commend what the council's already doing and then community involvement. What I'm just saying is my personal experience when I've talked to residents, some they do not feel they've been involved. This pledge is what it is. It's a pledge. It's a start to get people more involved. And like Councillor Wallace has said, the engagement from, you know, when we go out to vote, people have, their residents now have like a distrust in politicians, and they don't feel that they're involved and they have no say. And I think anything that actually encourages that is worthwhile. You know, that, I mean, establishing a commissioner, you know, the Tories actually established police commissioners a decade ago, and we had to, you know, we've had to sort of go with that. You know, that's something I would have disagreed with, but that's where we are. That, you know, that this is just really a further measure to try and get more involvement by the communities. And like I said, I'm not negating anything that has already been established, and I know there's some really good works and community involvement, but we're just we need to reach everybody, and I think this is just another measure to do that. Thank you.
Go to the vote now. Seconded. Did you? We've had the reply summed up. Okay, now we're going to the vote, and there has been a name vote.
Could I ask all members to vote on the motion, please? Have all members voted? Close the vote now.
The motion is carried by 41 votes, no abstentions, 8 against. Motion's carried.
For motion 8, and I know it's not, we're not debating.
We cannot talk.
All right, it's just that it's just published on
We cannot,
Facebook.
we can't about it at all. Right, we are now on item 6, which is chair's announcement. I'm not going to say much. All I'm going to say is thank you to Councillor Cox for covering my events and appointments due to me being away because of Carol's passing. Thank you. It's now item 7, which is the mayor's announcements.
I just want to say to everyone, what a night, right? I'm sitting here and I'm not particularly proud of the behaviour tonight. I feel I should apologise to the residents, to be quite honest, and I'm quite upset about it. On the other hand, I'm not going to say it anymore, but you see, off you go on your election trail, and all the best to everyone. Thank you.
Right, it's 9:15 now. If the majority of members agree, we can add an extra 15 minutes onto our 3.5 hours, which will take us up to 9:45. So can we have a vote on that? I think just hands. We want to Go for hands. Agreed. Anybody disagree? Okay, passed. So we're here. So we've got to quarter there. Item 8, questions by members of the council. Question 1, Councillor Kerwin, do you want to ask this question or take it as read?
Take it as read, Chair.
Councillor Phillips, I think you're answering this question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question, Councillor Kerwin. Northumbria University, alongside other higher education institutions located in the North East, are an important and valued asset to the region. It is vital that alongside being a major local employer, that Northumbria University is able to respond to the needs of our residents. This includes young people progressing on higher education courses, along with adults to access these important local institutions to study to improve their skills and life chances. So yes, the Mayor will write to the Minister to ask him to urgently review direct funding provided to the university.
Councillor Kerwin, do you have a supplementary? No. Question 2, Councillor Thurloway, do you wish to ask this question or take it as read?
Take it as read, please.
Councillor Phillips, I think this is you again.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Thurloway. It gives us an opportunity to catch members up on what's been going on. I'm pleased to report that all students are now back to face-to-face learning with a range of short and medium-term solutions in place at the schools affected. This has been a difficult and unprecedented incident which has affected the education of around 1,700 pupils. In December 2023, a small part of concrete block fell from the ceiling in Fordley Primary School. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. This prompted a proactive investigation by council officers into the cause and to review the safety at all schools in the borough. As a result of this investigation, 3 further schools were identified in February as needing further assessment to ensure their safety: Churchill Community College, Hazelwood Primary School and Grasmere Academy. The report for Fordley Primary School was received by council officers on Monday. It showed a historical isolated issue connected to the mixture of concrete used when the school was built in the 1960s. Investigations at the other 3 schools have identified similar concerns that we are investigating further. Our priority throughout has been and will continue to be the safety of our pupils and staff. Officers and school staff have been working tirelessly to ensure this happens and to minimise disruption to education. I'd like to thank school leaders, staff, pupils and the wider school communities for their support and patience. We know this has been challenging. We have used other schools and buildings in the borough to accommodate students at affected schools, and we are grateful to those school leaders, venues and community groups for offering their support and services. The council is doing everything it can, but has limited resources. We are prioritising funding to deal with this situation quickly, safely and thoroughly, and have spent more than £1.5 million since December. There has been no confirmation of any financial support yet from the Department for Education. We want all our children and young people to thrive and to be educated and supported in safe environments. I'd like to thank again the officers and school staff for their tireless work and families and pupils for being patient and supportive.
Councillor Thurloway, do you have a supplementary?
Unfortunately, I do. Taking into consideration the massive cuts to local government funding imposed by successive Conservative governments since 2010, does the Cabinet member believe that it should be central government that pays for the costs associated with the defective concrete?
Thanks for that, Councillor Thurloway. It goes without saying, we simply haven't got the money to deal with this type of issue. As you've already pointed out, council and LEA budgets have been some of the most cut public services since the Conservative coalition was elected in 2010. We've had over £140 million of cuts from our budget, and at the same time, obviously, we've been forced to raise council taxes. Yeah, the government must stump up the money. It might not just be for refurb or rebuild of the schools, but also it's got to be the money that the council are currently spending on the measures we've took to ensure all of the children are getting face-to-face education. I've already mentioned in my reply that it's upwards of £1.5 million so far. Unfortunately, Churchill Community College is probably the best example, or the worst example, depending which way you want to look at it, about how this government has totally neglected education. Under a Labour government in 2009, the school was added to the Building Schools for the Future list of schools to receive funding for new buildings. So it was recognised back in 2009 that it needed new building. However, when the Conservative government came into power, it scrapped Building Schools for the Future, and even Michael Gove said it was a disastrous decision. Since then, Churchill Community School, which was identified as needing help, has not been able to get any source of funding to help with rebuilding since. So absolutely, Councillor Thirlway, I do think the government need to stump up. I think it's really important that they do that. Thank you.
Councillor John O'Shea.
Taken as read, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Carl Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. After many months of cross-party LGA campaigning, in the spring budget confirmed the Household Support Fund will continue for a further 6 months to September 24. Based on the existing allocation, is estimated to be in the region of 1.6 million to the council. Chair, this is just a small extension though, and the council, as well as the rest of the cross-party groups in the LGA, will continue campaigning for the Household Support Fund to be a permanent addition to the local government finance settlement.
Councillor O'Shea, do you have
No supplementary, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Cox, Deborah Cox.
As it's my last one, I'm going to read it out. If North Tyneside Council was to borrow £50 million to spend on roads and pavements, how much would it cost the council in capital financing costs?
Councillor Hannah Johnson, I think you're.
Thank you, Chair. Borrowing £50 million in a single instalment would cost the authority £4.382 million per annum in capital financing costs. It's no wonder the Conservative group couldn't quite make it add up in their sums and propose this in a balanced budget. By contrast, the authority's existing £2 million annual contribution towards highways maintenance costs the revenue budget £175,000 per annum in the associated capital financing costs. These costs are factored into our budget, a balanced budget for next year. So any politician in North Tyneside claiming to want to invest or having a plan to invest £50 million into roads and pavements, like the Conservative group, they should be abundantly clear with residents that their plans would require an additional 4%, yes, 4% council tax rise. It is clear the Conservative group in North Tyneside continue to mislead the public on this, and they should be called out. Thank you.
Councillor Cox, you have a supplementary?
No, thank you, Chair.
On to question 5. Councillor Cruddas, do you wish to ask this question or take it as read?
Taken as read, Chair.
Councillor Hannah Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. In August last year, we launched our Neat Streets initiative, which supports our ambition of delivering a cleaner, greener and safer North Tyneside. As part of our commitment to delivering this important initiative, we have invested an additional 1.5 million in bringing extra resources to improve our estates across the borough. We have installed 100 new litter bins across all wards and introduced a digital reporting system for our on-street bins, making it easier for residents to report any issues such as full bins. We have introduced 6 new rapid response teams to complement the work of the existing environmental maintenance teams. These teams have been improving the cleanliness and overall appearance of our neighbourhoods, focusing on those areas most in need through the removal of litter, fly tipping and vegetation. We have also introduced 3 new pedestrian street sweeping machines, enabling us to target those areas which can't be accessed any longer by mechanical sweeping machines. I am pleased to report that this has resulted in an extra 235 tonnes of waste being removed. We understand that maintaining a garden can be difficult for some, and this is why we are helping those tenants most in need. We have increased the number of gardens we maintain and the frequency in which we attend. Neat Streets now allows us to assist over 700 tenants who, without our help, would struggle. To further support our housing tenants, we have also introduced free bulky waste collections with over 400 collections carried out so far. In addition to this, we have continued with our successful estate cleanup programme, where a further 44 visits have been carried out by the team. Collectively, these 2 initiatives have seen a further 145 tonnes of waste removed. 22 dedicated housing officers carry out regular visits across our estates and engage with residents and tenants. We have also increased our community protection officers by 2, and their purpose is to focus on private properties and gardens. As part of their visits, officers have carried out nearly 3,000 garden inspections and have engaged with over 800 residents, with the intention of helping residents to improve their own spaces. The Neat Streets programme has been a fantastic addition, and I look forward to it continuing. It should also be pointed out that all of the opposition groups on this council voted against the Neat Streets budget this year, thereby voting against extra investment in our green spaces and communities. Thank you.
Councillor Cruddas, do you have a supplementary question?
No, I don't, Chair, and thank you for the excellent response.
Councillor Montague, do you wish this question to be?
Thank you, Chair. Please take the question as read.
Councillor Hannah Johnson.
This will be a pretty short answer, to be honest, because there have never been any plans for a bus lane to be introduced in North Tyneside and by North Tyneside Council on the Coast Road within North Tyneside. I can also confirm very clearly that Labour in North Tyneside would strongly oppose the introduction of any bus lanes on the Coast Road, which will make it even more difficult to move around and redistribute traffic in our estates. This, once again, is the Conservatives misleading the public, and there's never been a plan considered by North Tyneside Council on a bus lane in the borough, and we are the only body which could approve such a bus lane. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah Johnson. So there's no way that we're going to have a bus lane in North Tyneside. That's what you say. And that was extremely disrespectful. Pathetic.
Chair, could I suggest that if that's indicative of their maturity, it's past their bedtime.
Question 7, Councillor Drummond. Do you wish to take this as read, or do you wish to ask a question?
Yeah, they shouldn't believe everything they read in the papers. I'll take that as read.
Councillor Hannah Johnson.
Thank you. First of all, you're quite right that we should be justifiably proud of our leisure centres, libraries and parks in North Tyneside. The high usage of these facilities, myself being a member of the consortiums, and the great feedback we receive from our residents backs us up. Rather than just protecting what we have, we're continuing to invest and improve these services. For example, we have recently finished a full refurbishment of Forest Hall Library on the back of the publication of our new libraries and community hub strategy. We have also recently modernised and installed new state-of-the-art equipment to our gyms at Tynemouth Pool, the Lakeside Centre and Hadrian Leisure Centre, and we are planning very similar work for Waves Leisure Centre too. As for our award-winning parks, I'm sure you will all seen the fantastic improvements we've made to our tennis courts and running tracks in parks across North Tyneside. So I can confirm that we will continue to protect these important services at a time when others are choosing to close or privatise them because of government cuts. It's a priority for Labour in North Tyneside to continue investing in our parks and keep all of our leisure centres and library open. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. No, I don't have a supplementary on for me cocoa soon.
Councillor Pat Oliver.
Chair, I'll read it. Does North Tyneside Council have the power to reopen Rake Lane 24-hour service and Battle Hill walk-in centres?
Councillor Johnson, would you like to?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the question, Councillor Oliver. This has often been subject to misleading information and political leaflets. I'm happy to confirm, sad to confirm that the council does not have this power, no matter how much we wish to reopen Rake Lane or Battle Hill walk-in centres, which this Labour group ran a campaign on to save. We do not have the power to reopen them. It would be illegal use of this council's funding to spend money on that because we do not have the power to reopen that. The Planning and Commission of all urgent and emergency care services across the North East continues the rest of the North East and North Cumbria Integrated Care Board. Thank you, Chair. More misleading from...
When did we say that we had the power to reopen Rake Lane? We said our aim in that motion was to have a task force. But you let Frank Lott speak.
You speak through me, not.
You let him. That's only when it's us, though. You let them speak. You let them speak, though, didn't you?
Councillor Bones. Councillor Johnson, please continue after that rude interruption.
Not the first time I've been interrupted tonight, Chair.
Oh dear.
Not the first time I've been interrupted tonight or even answering this question, Chair. No, the council, I'll just reiterate that because, you know, my being lost in the interruption. The council absolutely does not have the power, despite political leaflets claiming that they would reopen services should they be elected. The council does not have the power to do that, so whoever they are planning to spend that, it's just more misleading of the residents of North Tyneside from political parties in North Tyneside.
Councillor Oliver, do you have a supplementary?
I don't, but thank you for that, Councillor Johnson. I'm really pleased this has been explained very, very explicitly.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. The ongoing works on the embankment at North Shields Fish Quay and the restricted access to the quayside is causing considerable drop in footfall at the Fish Quay. This situation has been ongoing for 18 months. Business owners are complaining that their trade has suffered terribly and some have even had to close with the loss of jobs. They acknowledge that there is going to be a drop in information sent on the session on the 18th of March to field questions at the Maritime Chambers to Wilmot and Dixon, the contractors. However, this is a type of measure is too little, too late, and the business owners want access to the Fish Quay improved immediately to encourage visitors and prevent any further loss of business. If this measure is not a possibility, are the council going to compensate these said businesses for losses due to the situation? Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Delivery of the roadside embankment walkway is a major infrastructure scheme that will improve the connectivity and footfall between the Fish Quay and the town centre. Whilst we acknowledge that has caused some disruption for business in the Fish Quay, we would dispute the suggestion that the construction of this key piece of infrastructure is the cause of some businesses to cease trading. Throughout the construction process, the council provided support to business, including additional outdoor seating, areas for numerous hospitality business during the summer period of 2023, and helping businesses access grant support. In order to mitigate the impact on businesses, the works have also been undertaken outside of the peak visitor season as much as possible, with pylon works carried out predominantly through the later autumn and winter. The drop-in centre session on the 18th of March was part of our ongoing engagement with business residents, and we will continue to engage with businesses and residents through direct letters, monthly newsletters, progress updates via social media. The roadside embankment walkway will provide a step-free access between North Shields Town Centre and the Fish Quay and onwards to the North Tyneside coast. It was a key project contained within the North Shields Master Plan, reflecting the long-spanning need to improve connectivity between these two economic areas. The proposal was subject to extensive public consultation with residents and businesses, both through the master plan and plan application process. As was before, on a case-by-case basis, we'll always look at any support we can offer businesses if they come forward to the council.
Councillor Davis, do you have a supplementary?
Yes. Some of the businesses have said that they've received a letter to say that they're going to open for Easter, but then close again and then open, and then the walkway, the access will be closed again till the end of May. Why is there no way that the council can just have this access open so they can improve, that can continue with their business trade?
I don't know if you've seen the size of the heavy machinery down on working on the embankment walkway, Councillor Davis, but it takes a hell of a lot to move it off and on to the site at the moment. We are opening it through the busy Easter period because we know that will be a key trading period for the businesses along there. So we're going above and beyond to move it off the site to let them have the maximum possible flexibility during a key trading period. We'll work as fast as we possibly, we'll make sure the contractors are working as fast as possibly can to get the entire road open as soon as possible.
Thank you for your attendance tonight. It has been a bit stressful, but well done, everyone, and good night. And we'll see you in May, I think it is May. Thank you. Thank you.